My name's Kent Hovind. I I've been a Baptist preacher 48 years.
I want to skip forward a little bit.
I taught high school science for 15 years. And our channel, we have several of them. We have our main website, drdino.com. We believe God should get the glory for his creation. We believe God wrote a book and told us how he did it. And that's the Bible, and he preserved it flawlessly. We believe the Bible is true. We're on Rumble, Kent Hovind Official, on Genesis Baptist Church channel on YouTube, and on Odyssey and a couple other places. You can see them all on our website, drdino.com. We also have a Dinosaur Adventureland, a theme park, museum, and science center, all based on creation, and it's all free. Visitors come from all over the world to see this place. Don't
What's
even
that?
Come on down.
Wait, did you just speak just now, or was that in the video?
I just spoke.
Oh, okay. What'd you say?
I was asking if you could hear me, because this thing I was acting up. I can't tell if that was
Yeah,
on my end or if it was messing up in the video.
No, you're good. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, that must be his video. Then I didn't even realize that at the time.
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, you sound perfectly fine.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Kent. Appreciate the introductions from the both of you. For the audience sake, we do have several more evolution-related debates with Dr. Dino set for the next month or so. So lots to look forward to. And tonight's topic being the 6 stages of evolution, we've got a lot to discuss. We are going to keep tonight a little bit more free-flowing, more informal than formal, keeping it one topic at a time, one point at a time. Ken Rock, why don't we hand it to you? Take a few minutes to kind of set the foundation for what we are going to discuss. Let's say 5 minutes. And what does the 6 stages of evolution mean to you? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And then we'll allow Kent to respond, and then we'll just kind of go back and forth on each point. Ken, the floor is yours.
That's fine. Do me a favor. Keep it like this, because I want to be able to look at Kent's thing. That way I don't forget what his actual 6 stages are. So let's go with the first one, cosmic evolution. The idea that you need space, time, and matter in order to explain evolution. The problem with this is if we're talking about, let's say, if we're having a conversation on how you make a sandwich, you would already go on the idea that you have what's needed to make the sandwich, like the bread, whatever you're putting in it, the plate, and all that. So when we're talking about evolution, we're already assuming that life would be there. And to say otherwise is kind of outside of the actual point of the argument. So I think that's irrelevant to this conversation. The next one is chemical evolution. The idea that chemicals have to come into existence before biological evolution comes in. That is true, but at the same time, like cosmic evolution, if you were arguing can life change over time, you're already assuming that that's there. And to do otherwise is to just move what the debate is. Next is stellatary and planetary evolution. This is just another form of cosmic evolution, realistically. So again, same argument applies. Organic and macro and micro are all just the same thing, just with different names on it. So realistically, when we look at it, half the chart is irrelevant to evolution, and the others are just evolution in general. So that is my basis for this. That is my premise. Is half of what Kent claims you need for evolution, you don't need. The other half is just evolution.
Ken Rock, thank you very much for those opening arguments, for laying out your...
What's that?
Because one of the things that Donnie didn't do well, which I find annoying, is we were supposed to be debating if we need 6 forms of what he calls evolution, for evolution to be free. That was what the actual topic was supposed to be.
Wait, what was the actual topic? What'd you say?
So the actual topic we were supposed to be going over, and Donnie didn't explain it well, specifically for Kent, was do we need all 6 of Kent's form of evolution?
You're lagging and going in and out, by the way. I think what I heard from you, though, is you said that whether if we need all 6 forms of evolution, that's what the debate is?
One moment.
No, you're fine. I can hear you now, though, by the way.
Okay. So the debate was supposed to be, do we need all 6 of his forms of evolution for biological evolution?
Gotcha. Oh, so he's not debating for God? He's debating for evolution?
No, I'm debating for evolution.
Yeah.
He's still probably debating for God. He just...
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I was still following. Yeah, okay, yeah. Because I see it up here, yeah, like, Whereas it's cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, and matter, Big Bang, chemical evolution, the origin of higher elements, blah blah, yada yada yada. So that's what you're using, right?
Basically, whenever he debates evolution, he says you need to explain those things.
Yeah.
And the debate was this night was, do you actually need those things? Like, can biological evolution be explained by them?
Gotcha. Okay.
Premise and setting the foundation for tonight. Kent, let's hand it over to you for a response. Go ahead.
Well, his opening was like saying, well, if you had $1 trillion, we'll stop right there. Where'd the $1 trillion come from? You don't just start with $1 trillion, okay? Where did it come from? Cosmic evolution is the idea that time, space, and matter had to come into existence somewhere, somehow. Where did matter come from? The whole world is made out of material matter. Where did it come from? You can't just say it was there. Now let's go on from there. No, I would like you guys to explain, because the evolutionist theory wants to have a naturalistic explanation for everything we see today. We see 339 breeds of dogs, and they probably had a common ancestor called a dog. But they would like to teach our kids that the dog is related to the mosquito. I say, guys, let's back up. First, I'd like to know how you got the matter to make the dog to begin with. Where did matter come from? Where did space come from? We are living in three-dimensional space. Where did space come from? Did it just always existed? Time, where did time come from? If time started with the Big Bang 13.772 billion years ago, what was before that? Was there no time, space, matter? Did time, space, matter come into existence? From where? God answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth. God made time, space, matter in that order. You have to have time first, put space in there, and then you got to have matter. You can't have matter with no space, because where would you put it? So I don't think the evolutionists have ever really answered this question. And Ken is just trying to say, well, we don't need to explain that because we're starting with life. So I'm just quickly pointing out that the evolution theory is not a reasonable theory. You start with life already existing. That's like me saying, well, if we had $1 trillion, stop. We don't have $1 trillion. And where would it come from? They love to skip these first four because they don't have an answer for them. There is no logical answer.
Like this guy just never heard
Somebody outside of time, space, matter had.
What's that?
Like, did you hear that? He said, well, if you have $1 trillion, no, you don't get it.
His analogy doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I'm not following with that.
It's really stupid.
What's it called? Like, his analogy doesn't refute or debunk. Basically, he just came in with the simple forms of evolutions along with the theory of evolution, and it's basically a general consensus of what they are and like the different versions of them. So he came in, and then that's basically the whole reasoning for life and how everything kind of came out to be. And he just starts responding and basically like, oh, you don't just come at $1 trillion out of nowhere, blah blah, so it just doesn't really make sense how he's approaching it. And then he just out of nowhere just says that God did this and this and this. Well, that's just a baseless claim. You could say God did this all day every day, but he didn't even have any evidence for that. So I don't really know where he's going, but it is what it is. Like, I can kind of see what he's trying to say. That like maybe I don't know if I'm hearing it correctly, that he's basically saying, well, all this stuff had to come from something, whatever, blah, blah, like it doesn't just miraculously get there, whatever, but at the same time, like that's not what's technically being discussed. What's technically being discussed is how life basically continued to, to basically form and and et cetera, the whole 9 yards. And when it comes to the whole theory of evolution and the forms of evolution, et cetera, which is backed up by tons and tons of evidence, okay, then that's kind of what you're working with, and there's the reasons, the whys, and the hows. While with God, it's all just basically shit from the Bible, and yada yada, on whether or not if some omnipotent being did all this stuff or whatever. And once again, good luck even proving that. So, I don't know. Well, I'll just continue to hear him out, but yeah, I'm not really understanding his whole analogy.
Had to create it. That would be God. The guy who created this watch is not in the watch, running around in there changing the numbers on the screen. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. The God who created the universe is not limited by time, space, or matter, at least the God that I worship. Then chemical evolution, I mention this because they say the Big Bang produced hydrogen and maybe some helium, and maybe a little lithium, the first 3 elements on the periodic table. Well, how do you get gold, silver, platinum, uranium? How do we get 92 elements from hydrogen gas? You just can't say, well, it was here. Life was already... Stop. Before you get life, you got to get all the elements. There's a lot of different elements in any living form. So if the Big Bang Theory, which I think is baloney, created hydrogen, which I think the whole thing is baloney, how do you get from hydrogen to the 92 elements? I think they owe us an explanation if they want everybody to pay for that dumb religion to be taught in the school system. It's nothing but a religion. This is why they want to skip the first four. Number three, if the Big Bang produced hydrogen gas, how do you get planets and stars? Because if there was a Big Bang and the matter is racing away from a common point, well, the further you go out away, the further apart they get, like spokes on a wheel. How are these particles going to
Well, that's simple. How do we get planets and stars? You can just Google that. There's science that explains that. That's a very simple question to answer. Just saying.
Together to form planets and stars.
This guy's so stupid. He thinks that light has not always been constant.
Bruh.
I think light's getting slower.
Like, evolution's a very simple process. It's just a process by, like, which species adapt over time in response to their changing environment, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's very, very simple, very, very straightforward. You know, it's a change of characteristics of species over several generations and relies on the process of natural selection and moves forward from there. Like, once again, all this stuff has tons of evidence, abundance of it, to just continue moving forward with the whole notion of evolution and the theory of it. And how kind of everything started, comes to be, and continues to change over time, etc. When it comes to space and everything, and planets and stars, yada yada, once again, that is all out there as well. And if you want to know how those things even happen, are formed, etc., it's all on fucking Google. You can Google it. There's plenty of scientists that specialize in astronomy, you name it, etc. Like, so, and once again, that's like actual, like, objective, factual, like, you know, evidence you can use compared to just saying out of nowhere of subjective evidence of just assuming that an omnipotent being did all that instead. Like, once again, picking between the two, the other one's obviously stronger. It's just, you know, I don't know how you would win with that, you know? So.
Well, this man goes to such extremes to get the world to fit how he wants, is he claims light is currently getting slower.
Bruh. Yeah.
You think those little individual particles had enough material, gravity, to connect to each other? How did stars and planets form? I think it's very reasonable for anybody to say, if you want me to pay for your religion to be taught, you better have an explanation for that. They don't have an explanation for how stars form.
Right here. Stars are born within the clouds of dust and scattered throughout most galaxies. Familiar example of such as a dust cloud is the nebula, whatever. Turbulence deep within these clouds give rise to knots with a sufficient mass that the gas and dust can begin to collapse under its own gravitational attraction. Star formation. Like, I literally just Googled it. How stars are formed step by step. It's literally called star formation. Okay, and basically, like, it has all the steps and just it basically is explained and described, etc., etc. So, if you guys want to know, you could just simply Google it, and there you go. And then, like, how are planets formed? Like, he keeps asking that. For planets, the sun and the planets formed together 4.6 billion years ago from a cloud of gas and dust called the solar nebula. Shockwave from a nearby supernova explosion probably initiated the collapse of solar nebula, whatever. The sun formed in the center, and the planets formed in a thin disk orbiting around it, you know. And then let me do this.
Well, who's going to believe we've never seen a star form?
Yeah, so that's basically all it is. So yeah, I already looked it up. Yeah, so it's just all with a dense cloud of dust and gas. Spins around a newly formed star. Gravity causes the bits of matter in the nebula to clump together. Slowly these clumps accumulate and grow. Eventually these clumps become planets. And that's all it is. And obviously, reasonably under the assumption that there's plenty of evidence to back that up and etc. And this connects as a basically a chain, a domino effect, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's all it is. Yeah, so I just looked it up real quick, but just to answer his question, because he keeps asking that, like, how is it is, and once again, you can just look it up.
Once in a while, called a nova or a supernova. We've never seen one form. I think the burden of proof is on them. To Ken to just say, well, we're going to start with life. Stop. I'm not going to allow that. If you want to start with life, then you teach your religion in a private school, but I don't want to pay for that to be taught because you do not have a good foundation. I don't either. When I say in the beginning God created the heaven and earth, I can't explain where God came from. The question itself is probably invalid. Where involves space, did involves time, God come from involves moving the distance. If God's not locked into time, space, matter, the whole question's invalid. Like asking, why are elephants orange? They're not orange. Okay, I can't answer that question, why they're orange, because they're not. So, but explaining how planets got here, I think they need to explain that.
It is explained. What do you mean? Go ask an astronomer.
Diameter. It's a really big ball, really heavy.
It's on Google.
Where did it come from? To say it came from a big bang is ludicrous, because as I mentioned, a big bang, there's no evidence for that. But the fragments will be getting further apart. The longer you wait, the further apart they get. They're never going to get back together by gravitational
Once again, there's plenty of evidence of how it's formed and everything. It's all the only stuff we have.
There isn't any reason.
So meaning, therefore, that's the only thing we can go off. We can't just assume an omnipotent being did it.
Got here. Then, number 4, he wants
what were you saying, though?
And then, did you notice how within my entire thing, I actually never the Big Bang?
I say that one more time. You went out.
Did you notice how I never received Big Bang when we were talking?
Yeah, you didn't even bring up the Big Bang. Yeah, you just mentioned like the different forms and versions of evolution, basically. So, and like how that goes into the whole thing of how like life kind of prospers from there and etc. So,
also,
yeah.
I don't know. He's having a whole rant right now.
Scientists have been trying in the laboratory for a long time.
Like I would immediately just like been interjecting and be like, hey, relevance. Like this man's just ranting. And then I probably would have been told to like be quiet, but
Frog and put it in.
Unfortunately, the way
ran it for 30 seconds.
SFT does it.
Within 30 seconds.
Unfortunately, the way I'm Standing for Truth does it is everyone gets 5 minutes to say whatever they want.
Okay, I see. That's kind of like taking turns, like in a Discord debate, and the guy just goes into you wait until he's done. Okay.
Yeah.
Even if he's shotgunning a million points and going on a whole fucking baseless tangent.
I got all the material for a frog in a blender. Frog milk. Now, reassemble the frog. It can't be done. They don't know how life started. They believe it had to happen by chance somewhere long ago and far away.
Right. All these comments in the chat are just nothing but subjective, baseless claims or appealing to emotion.
Absolutely.
Like this guy right here. God created everything spontaneously and fully formed. What? Prove that.
That's not science.
The fuck?
It's a religious belief. Then macroevolution, where you change from one kind of animal into another, that one's never been observed. What Ken really wants to do in this debate is to say, well, the first 4 or 5 are unnecessary.
I just looked up the definition of science: a systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and testing of theories against the evidence obtained. Nowhere does it say it's religion, by the way. Just want to put that out there.
They are essential to have a coherent theory. Use the illustration.
Oh god, I didn't mean to do that. What the fuck happened? No! You back?
It's all broken.
If I said, well, let's start with $1 trillion. Stop. Stop right there. Where's the trillion coming from? Who earned this money? So he wants to start with living things. I'm not going to allow that.
And then religion, while this ding-dong's talking, the belief in or worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. And there you go. So totally two different definitions, two different words, science or religion. Science is not a religion. It's a basis claim.
There is no logical answer. For evolution is not a complete theory. It's not a scientific theory. It's a
real quick.
Belief. Now we do see.
Just so you're aware, towards the later part of this debate, I'm under a tornado watch.
Yeah.
And I let them know just in case I have to leave. And there's a point where he actually mocks me for that.
Okay.
It's really weird.
Yeah, for a guy that believes in God, you would think, oh, I hope you're okay. Instead of being a dick about it. Oh, science different from... Yeah, and see right here, another thing too, guys, this is the thing where it says, how is science different from religion? It just says it blatantly, science relies on testable empirical evidence and observation, religion relies on subjective belief in a creator. Once again, objective is strong. Empirical evidence and objective evidence will always triumph over subjective evidence. It's subjective belief of your personal opinion and emotions of what you think. That doesn't do anything. Like, if you were to have that mentality, like in a courtroom, for a court case and give plenty of subjective arguments, whatever the case may be, that's not going to work for you. You know what I mean? They're only going to take in actual objective evidence or empirical evidence to things that you can prove. It's just stupid. It's very ignorant, and once again, it just doesn't make any sense.
Number 6, variations within the same kind. Microevolution, if you want to call it, evolutionary change within a species or small group of organisms. Okay, I believe cows have all come from a common ancestor called a cow. I believe there are forces that we know that cause that to happen. Natural selection or artificial selection. The farmer can decide he wants bigger cows or more milk or something. And he can selectively breed his cows until he gets what he wants, or his corn or his green beans or whatever. The artificial selection works great. Natural selection works great. Both of them select. They don't create a thing. All they do is select. So if you want to start with living things, you already need to admit, first of all, you have a religion. You don't have any science at all. I'm not going to allow you to start with living things because you didn't answer how they got there. I'm not going to let you start with $1 trillion either. You got to answer how you got the trillion. So I think that the purpose of the debate tonight is for him to explain how, not just let's just skip these first 5, answer them. Where did time and space and matter come from, and what was before that? And how did a Big Bang produce all the chemicals when it only, even by their theory, would only make hydrogen? How did you get lithium, platinum, gold, silver, uranium? How do we get it? We got them. They're here. How did they get here? How did Earth get here? How did life get started? No atheist on the planet has ever had an answer to the first 4. None. That's why they want to skip it. So I'll stand by my guns. The Bible says in the beginning, God created it. I don't think there's any other answer to the question. Now, I take that by faith, and I admit I have a religious belief that God made
Another example for you guys, too, like objective evidence or empirical evidence, whatever. Like in other examples, like you have blood tests, you have MRIs, you have X-rays, things that you can definitively see with your own eyes and prove, etc., blah, blah. And then you have things like subjective view, which can be basically correlated to religion, to faith in an omnipotent being, or things that can't even be measured, such as like, pain or depression, etc. So like, once again, when you have things like that and you're comparing the two, obviously one or the other is going to have a stronger case of being like, actually what you can go off or believed over something that you just don't have anything for. So that's just also kind of what you're working with. So if you ever like wonder the difference between subjective and objective evidence, there you go. And it just kind of correlates to this whole thing right here. Like evolution is nothing but empirical evidence and objective evidence, while believing in God is just subjective. You know what I mean? And once again, it just doesn't help you.
the world. Problem is, you will never hear Ken tonight or any other atheist or evolutionist admit they have a religious belief in evolution. They don't want you to believe.
It's not religious. You're just making up shit.
That's how it is science.
Thank you, Kent. Ken, over to you. If you'd like to, Ken Rock, specifically, if you'd like to pick a point within the 6 stages of evolution, we have lots of time for discussion. And so we will be able to touch on each point. Ken, let's allow you to pick the first one.
That's fine. Before I get into the main points in it, I have to ask the question of why do I need to explain? Because if we're talking about evolution, why would I need to explain the other ones? Like, are you telling me I have to explain to you how a sandwich, the parts for a sandwich, comes into existence before I tell you how to make a sandwich?
I think this is different than making a sandwich. If you're going to make a sandwich, I think you need to explain where did the bread come from, where did the wheat come from to make the bread, where did the peanut butter come from. You can't just say, we have all the components for a sandwich. Stop. You don't have the components for anything to evolve until you explain where did time, space, matter come from. Back to my illustration. If I said, we got $1 trillion, no, you don't.
At that point, I would just give them the answer right away and just like just Google it and be like, oh, yeah, I got you. Comes from this and this and this. Anything else? Now, let me ask you a question. Prove that God's real and prove why that triumphs over objective and empirical evidence.
You know that, right?
That's what I would immediately just said to the dude.
I didn't understand a single word of that. Say it slower.
So I also can't say gravity is a real thing either.
Real fast.
Yeah, gravity.
Because people have tried that. The problem is he instantly just goes to the idea of he doesn't have to prove anything.
Then it's baseless. Everything he says is baseless and doesn't matter, doesn't go through.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I do towards the end.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just saying, that's the easiest way to deal with this dude. Like, that's all you have to bring up and be like, okay, yeah, like, you keep asking these questions, I can give you the answers. Here's this and this and this. And also, now that I answered your questions, I'm going to ask you just to kind of cut this short and make this very simple, short, and concise. So there's plenty of empirical evidence and objective evidence to prove that science triumphs over religion, okay? And there's plenty of all this evidence that, basically corresponds to the whole purpose of evolution, how everything, starts and comes to be, etc. While with what you have is just your subjective viewing and belief and something that is completely baseless and you have no proof for. Okay, so, I don't know where this is going. If you can't prove anything, what you're saying or your belief, whatever, it's just baseless subjective bullcrap. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to help you. While on my end, I have plenty of empirical, objective evidence to support the whole, point of evolution and science behind it, and et cetera, which is all boils down to experimentation, and tons and abundance amount of evidence. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that fucking simple, So.
This man has never proved anything that he claims, and you'll see after this. Which is why at the end of the debate, he's just saying stuff and making claims for them.
Yeah, and then that's what I would do. Like, like the moment you start saying baseless bullshit, I'll be like, these are baseless claims. Once again, subjective arguments. Like, this doesn't prove anything. This doesn't help you. You still have not refuted or basically debunked, the whole theory of evolution and all the evidence and science of that. And to basically prove that this is why everything is how it is, et cetera, et cetera. While you just keep saying baseless crap. You know what I mean? Like, I can say all day, every day that I believe in the god of kangaroos. And that the god of kangaroo is what did everything, blah, blah, blah. But if I can't prove that, it doesn't matter. So.
Is something we can observe the effects of, but we don't really know what it is. I don't know anybody who knows what it is. The attraction of matter is just giving it a name. It's not gravity is giving it a name.
It's not the attraction of matter. It's the attraction of stuff towards a mass. But again, that's irrelevant. Under what you've just said, I'm not allowed to make any claims over anything.
I didn't understand part of it. You're not making any claims over anything?
No. Under what you have just said to me, I am not allowed to say any claims on anything.
You may claim you have $1 trillion to start with and tell me how you're going to spend it, but I'm still going to say, where did this trillion come from? And you may claim you got all the components for a sandwich.
And here's this what you can also say, guys, to a person that believes in faith and religion. You can be like, science is based observation and reasoning from observation. Religion assumes that human beings can access a deeper level of information that is not available by either observation or reason. The scientific method is proven by its success. The religious method is refuted by its failure. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? It's the most simplest way to kind of just connect the two or compare the two. And that's basically all you have at the end of the day. But just want to kind of put that out there too.
Which I'm still going to say, where'd the sandwich come from? And you may claim we're going to start with life. I'd like to know, where did matter come from to make the life? It is part of your theory. And I know you guys are embarrassed by this because I pointed out where a child can understand it. Wow, that's right. What is evolving?
No, again, it's all part of the hypothetical. Under the rules of the hypothetical, you go with the rules of the hypothetical. So when I sit there and say, if you have $100,000, what would you do? We assume you have the $100,000 because it's the starting point of the hypothetical. To sit there and say, I have to tell you how I made that, it's just redundant.
Right. So you're admitting that evolution is purely hypothetical.
No, I'm saying that even when we're having these conversations, under the idea be hypothetical. You don't agree in evolution, therefore to you it is hypothetical.
I will be glad to discuss micro or variations within kind and how that works, but I want you to, this is hypothetical. If you want to say that is an answer, how things variations happen, and if you want to say that answer is how they got here, you're mistaken. You can start this. I think you've admitted tonight already that evolution is hypothetical. You want to start with living things. Okay, let's talk about how living things evolve. Are there any limits to how they can evolve?
No, why would there be limits?
Well, there are 400 kinds of cows. Now that farmers have bred most of them, most would not survive in nature. Does variations within the cows prove that cows are related to mosquitoes?
Why would it
cows
not?
are, do you believe cows are related? What?
Why would it not?
Okay. Is this the type of, do you believe in these type of family trees that has humans and birds related? Or
Watch
you
him
believe-
ignore every question.
Via a common ancestor, yes. There's no reason to say they're not.
Well, my objection is the kids are taught this stuff at taxpayer expense. They draw the lines
That's
on
watch
paper
him
connecting
avoid
all the
every
different
question
plants
they
and
ask him.
animals
Okay.
and claim this is part of science. I'm just saying this isn't science.
What's
We've
science?
seen humans. Well, we got humans up here. We see humans produce a variety of humans. There are small ones, the pygmies, and big ones, the giant people, and there are black ones and white ones, or light color and dark color. Yes, there's a wide variety of humans, and they probably had a common ancestor called a human. But you guys want to look at the human variations and say, see, that's proof humans are related to pine trees and sharks, and we all came from an amoeba. This chart is pure propaganda. This is not science. Drawing lines on paper, connecting a protozoa to a biology teacher is absolute insanity. It's not science. This would be macroevolution. Even this chart is starting with life, a protozoa or a single-cell creature. This chart skipped the first 4. I'm just saying you guys don't have a good theory, and you should admit it. But you think it's science, and you think everybody should pay to have your religion taught. The Muslims think everybody should pay to have their religion taught. The Catholics think everybody should pay to have their religion taught. You evolutionists think everybody should be required to pay for your religion to be taught.
I never made that claim, Kent. I don't appreciate words being put in my mouth, dude.
All right. Do you think charts like this represent science and should be taught in public schools?
I think they're extremely synthesized, and if they can be proven to be true, yeah. Or at least if they're scientific.
Okay. I think scientifically we can demonstrate protozoa have always and only produced baby protozoa.
Do you have any proof for that?
That's the science is what we can observe. We observe protozoa make baby protozoa. Okay. We don't observe them change to anything else. So why? What gives them the justification to draw the line between the protozoa going up to all the lobsters and crabs and spiders and humans? Where's the scientific justification for that? Protozoa only make baby protozoa. It's not. This whole chart is not science. It's fiction. It's imagination. SpongeBob. It's religion. I don't think it's fair to make everybody pay to have this dumb religion taught in schools. You guys should go start a private school, make all the charts you want. You can connect lines to yourself in a jackhammer and everything else. I don't care. But this isn't science. That's all.
What is science?
Science. The word science comes from the Latin word scire. What do we know? And it's always been accepted for centuries. Science, what do we know by observation, experimentation, and testing? We can test. How fast does something fall? Oh, 32 feet per second or 9.8 meters per second. We can test gravity. There's a force of gravity. We can test the different things. See, science does not include all knowledge. There's a lot of things would not be science, like you can't know. We don't know. You'd have to be speculation. This is a good question, though. What is science? Science is what we observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Any dictionary will show you that. Science, knowledge gained from using observations, experiments to describe and explain the world around it. Every observation tells us dogs produce dogs, amoeba produce amoeba, no exceptions. But you guys have the amoeba turning into a dog. Stop. At somewhere, the amoeba stopped being an amoeba. Where's this? That's not science. Science uses the scientific method. You get an idea, make an observation, develop an idea. Wow, why did that happen? Why did this fall? I don't know. Let's do some testing on it. Let's think of experiments to test it. Let's predict what happened in the experiments, like with cows producing cows. I predict if you crossbreed cows, you will get a calf. I'd bet $5 on that. Then let's observe what actually happens. Sure enough, produces a calf. Well, let's try it again. Replace it. Must be a genetic connection. Cows are only allowed to make cows. That's what every farmer will tell you. Let's keep breeding them, and they've been doing that for centuries, and there'll always be cows. So the prediction is, it seems to always work that cows make cows. But why would you guys put a cow connected to an amoeba? That's what's insane to me. These kind of charts are nonsense. Nobody's ever seen an ape produce a non-ape baby. Monkeys make monkeys, apes make apes, gibbons make gibbons, baboons make baboons. There are no exceptions. So if you wish to draw a line, what is science? It comes from the Latin word knowledge. We know cows make cows. We do not know cows came from an amoeba. I don't know how you guys can't get it. That Google, what is science? Religions attempt to understand and explain the world, but religion is not considered science. I agree with that. And evolution is a religion. We don't see any of this happening. Science is knowledge attained through study or practice. These are the standard definitions of science. You guys have a religion mixed in with your science. That's all. I just wish you'd admit it.
So if I can prove anything under the method of evolution, it's now a science.
Can you show me any animal or plant producing anything other than its kind, what anybody would consider the same kind?
Are we going off the biblical kinds, or are we going off? What are we going off?
Well, the definition of definition of species is kind of
I don't care about the definition of species. I want to hear the definition of kind. Are we going off the biblical kind, or are we going off something else?
Well, here's a dictionary definition of species includes type or kind or sort. I think a 4-year-old can tell you two things that are the same kind. Is this the same kind of thing as this? No. Okay. Is this the same kind of thing as this? Oh, yes, they're the same kind. They're DVD cases. Okay. I think a 4-year-old would know that. Now, in some cases, it's very difficult. Is a llama and a alpaca the same kind? I don't know. But a llama is not the same as a frog. That I know. Most of the times, it's pretty simple. God said they'd bring forth after their kind.
So we're going off the biblical kind then? Because I just need a straightforward answer so I can answer.
Yeah. Well, I'm not here to defend the Bible as being scientifically accurate. I think it is, but I'm not forcing everybody to pay for that to be taught. You guys want to say crows. There are 10 varieties of crows, probably had a common ancestor, and they came forth after their kind.
Have you seen like how many
crows
of
are
my
related to herons and frogs and mosquitoes and pine trees and elephants and whales? That's what's insanity about all this. You guys make these charts and make these wild claims. Wow.
You okay,
Yeah, what's up?
I just want to make sure you're okay, because I thought I heard you yawn earlier.
No, I'm fine. What's it called? I'm still listening to everything. What's it called? What you can also say as well, because like I feel like where the disconnect is, where he's just not understanding, where he's like this is a religion and this just blah blah, and science is what we can actually test and observe, blah blah, and yada yada, and like the theory of evolution and you can't whatever blah blah, and has to be religion, yada yada. What he's not understanding is there's evidence for the theory of evolution. Like, it's not like we're just making a theory of evolution and like, oh, everything just connects to each other, whatever, blah, blah, and that's basically it, and that's it, right? Because then at that point, that would also be baseless, and that would be similar to what religion is, right? Faith or just assuming or thinking something is, right? That's not the case. So, the reason why there's a difference between the two is the evidence for evolution. Okay, basically they found, I'm just going to read basically what's on here. They found compelling evidence for biological evolution in a study of living organisms and their geographic distribution in the fossils remains of extinct organisms. Since Darwin's time, the evidence from these sources have become considerably stronger and more comprehensive, while biological disciplines that emerged more recently, genetics, biochemistry, physiology, ecology, animal behavior, and especially molecular biology, have supplied powerful additional evidence and detailed confirmation that the amount of information about evolutionary history stored in the DNA and proteins of living things is virtually unlimited. Scientists can also reconstruct any detail of the evolutionary history of life by investing sufficient time and laboratory resources. So there is an abundance of evidence to continue to prove that this theory of evolution is like actually legitimate. In the possibility, etc., etc. It's not like we're just thinking of something or making something up just for shits and giggles. So that's the first thing that he's just not understanding. That like he would basically have to prove that biochemistry, physiology, ecology, animal behavior, molecular biology, all this stuff, you name it, or DNA and proteins and whatever, blah blah, all this fucking shit is just wrong and fake. That makes no sense. You would never be able to do that. So, and then not only that, evolutionists no longer are concerned with obtaining evidence to support the fact of evolution, but rather are concerned with what sorts of knowledge can be obtained from different sources of evidence. The following sections identify the most productive of these sources and illustrate the types of information they have provided. You have the first thing, like the fossil records, where basically, I don't even know how to fucking say this word, but pathologists, whatever, have recovered and studied the fossil remains of many thousands of organisms that have lived in the past. This fossil record shows that many kinds of extinct organisms are very different in form from any now living. It also shows succession to organisms through time, determining the relationship, blah, blah. This is other. When an organism dies, it's usually destroyed by other forms of life and by weathering processes. On rare occasions, some body parts, particularly hard ones such as shells, teeth, or bones, are preserved by being buried in mud or protected in some other way from predators and weather. Eventually, they may become petrified and preserved indefinitely with the rocks in which they are embedded. Methods such as radiometric dating, measuring the amounts of natural radiation atoms that remain in certain minerals to determine the elapsed time since they were constituted, makes it possible to estimate the time period when the rocks and the fossils associated with them were formed. And I could just keep continuing to read on and on and on, but the first thing just connects with like fossil records and how all that connects and blah blah, and how it connects to like evolutions of horses and stuff and all these other animals, blah blah. Then you have like the whole human lineage when it comes, with us being as apes and then evolving into like, further humans and things like that. So you have all that stuff. Structural similarities, where how similar all our structural similarities can be. You have all that, like the skeletons of turtles, horses, humans, birds, and bats are strikingly similar in spite of different ways of life of these animals and diversity of their environments, etc., etc. So like once again, everything just continues to connect and connect and connect, Then you have like the embryonic like development and stages. You have all that. Then you have like biogeography. What's it called? You have molecular biology, which provides the most detailed and convincing evidence available for biological evolution, and its unveiling of the nature of DNA and workings of organisms at levels of enzymes and other protein molecules. It has shown that these molecules hold information about organisms' ancestry. So like there's just so much evidence, so much things that correlate to each other that connects the dots, etc., etc., etc. Like once again, guys, you could just go on Google, you can look at all this stuff, you know what I mean? And it's all there, So I don't understand where he gets this whole thing of like it's like a religion we're creating or some faith or belief or whatever, because that's just not the case, period. So but anyways, we can go back to the vid or whatever.
We saw 10 varieties of crows. Scientists have classified 10 varieties of crows. Therefore, look at this, boys and girls. Crows are related to ladybugs. How do you get that in your head from seeing 10 kinds of crows? Nobody has ever seen any animal or plant produce what anybody would consider a different kind.
Under the biblical definition, yeah, I can.
Okay, well,
that's why I asked.
Show me the example you have, and then I'm going to say, does that justify making a chart like this? Go ahead.
Okay, so the biblical has 4 different types of kinds. Do you remember what they are?
Well, there's the creeping kind, the flying, those that can fly, right? Go ahead.
Crawling and swimming.
So are there, well, I think you're confusing the cows bring forth after their kind. That is, there are more than 4 different kinds of animals.
That's not what the beginning of the Bible says. This says there's only the 4.
Bible says there's only 4 kinds of animals?
At the beginning, yeah, they only describe the 4.
Okay, I see where this is going. Okay, I will.
That's why I asked for your definition. And if you're not going to give it to me, I'm going to go off the one that it seems most likely with what you've said. Other that, or I have to assume you're breaking.
Show me the example you have, and then I'm going to say, does that justify making a chart like this? Go ahead.
Okay, so the biblical has 4 different types of kinds. Do you remember what they are?
Well, there's the creeping kind, the flying, those that can fly, right? Go ahead.
Crawling and swimming.
So are there, well, I think you're confusing the cows bring forth after their kind. That is, there are more than 4 different kinds of animals.
That's not what the beginning of the Bible says. This says there's only the 4.
Bible says there's only 4 kinds of animals?
At the beginning, yeah, they only describe the 4.
Okay, I see where this is going. Okay, I will.
That's why I asked for your definition. And if you're not going to give it to me, I'm going to go off the one that it seems most likely with what you've said. Other that, or I have to assume you're breaking the dialectic.
Well, no, hold it. I believe the purpose of this debate is for you to demonstrate these. You want to start with living things. Why would you say cosmic evolution is not essential for your theory? You got to have something to evolve. Where does the matter come from?
Like I said at the beginning, if we're talking about evolution for itself, we go off the premise that reality itself is as it is. Otherwise, I have to justify everything that ever happens. and that's
Okay, so
completely
you
off
want-
basis for the debate.
All right, so you want to start with living things. So I'll tell you what, let's start off. I'll give you $1 trillion. I will give you a protozoa. I'll just what do we start with here? I'm sorry.
Why are you changing the topic currently?
Oh, this is exactly it.
Well, you
wanna
asked me
start-
for an example of something changing kinds. I asked you what
Okay.
that definition of a kind is. When I went to tell you what one is and the examples of it, you want to change to something else now. I want to know why that is.
I'm sorry. Show me your example. What animal have you seen change to a different kind?
Okay. If
Have
we
you
go
seen
off
something-
the biblical kinds, mudskippers are now a different kind because they're not swimming or crawling. They're in between. Ants also would be considered a different kind because they're not crawling or flying. They're in between, especially with queen ants.
Okay, yeah, I can't understand your verbiage here a little bit. Mud skippers, and what was the other one?
Queen ants, because they don't necessarily just crawl, they can also fly. So they'd be in between the crawling and flying kind and the crawling and swimming kind. So they're in
Okay, so-
between.
Okay, let's take one at a time here. Do you think the queen ant has ever produced babies that were not ants?
I think they came from something that was not an ant. Yeah.
Again, your microphone or something's wrong. You think
That's
the
fine.
queen
I
ant-
think they came from something that was non-ant. Similar to I think they're more related to the termites than they are us.
Okay, so you believe the queen ant came from something that was non-ant.
Yeah.
But has anybody seen this happen?
Yes,
Has anybody
coyotes
seen-
and dogs.
What now?
Wolves and dogs.
Yeah.
Wolves and dogs, okay.
It's a wolf and dog.
I think man has decided to put labels on different creatures, and we've decided to call a wolf and a dog by different names.
You know,
think
wolves
we-
and dogs have like a huge difference between them, right? Like,
Yeah, the
wolves
fuck?
can digest raw meat and dogs can't.
I don't know that. I've never studied dogs where they just raw meat all the time.
They can't eat a whole lot of it. They can't digest it properly. You're not supposed to
No.
feed your dog raw meat a whole bunch.
Well, I think if man has selectively bred wolves to get them that are tamer,
You even have
Or faster,
cats
or
and
whatever.
lions. Big difference.
like they've selectively bred dogs down to Chihuahuas, Great Danes, all kinds of different dogs, they have selected something that might have caused some problems now in the genetic code or in the digestive tract or something like that. My wife's dog has all kinds of problems, going blind and eyeballs this way and tongue hangs out the side, but it's still a dog, barely, but it still is. But that is man intervening in it. I would not argue the dog is related, or that even the pug came from a wolf over hundreds of generations. But that does not demonstrate science that says a pug is related to a bird and a lobster and an insect and a flatworm. This chart is propaganda. This is lying to our kids.
Well, once again, with the whole molecular biology and everything, and the DNA and et cetera, and the whole 9 yards, and this and this and this and this, and the abundance amount of evidence of how everything is connected to each other, etc. Yes, that would be the case, because once again, the evidence is there, and they all have similar things within it. We've seen there's plenty of things to analyze and see that connects to each organism. So yes, like that is legit. Which once again, he's just not understanding. Like I feel like what is like makes it so confusing for him is that he's completely like just baffled that somehow, some way, a starfish and a fucking worm could have some type of like correlation to each other, you know, within their DNA and whatnot, et cetera, the whole 9 yards. Like that just blows his fucking mind somehow. And I don't understand the problem.
Can I let you know something real fast?
Yeah.
This guy actually does know how all this works. He's just being ratty.
Oh, okay.
He's been debating this for 40 years.
Yeah.
He's actually talked to people who have studied this for years and all, like actual professors and all that, who have pointed out how this works.
Yeah.
So he's fully aware of how this works and all the evidence and all that.
Yeah.
He's just being very ratty.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah.
Science. You said you believe the queen ant came from something that was non-ant.
Yeah.
Show me this happening. What did it come from?
I wouldn't know what that is. I haven't studied that. But the fact of the matter is, I have now proven that creatures can come from stuff that aren't them. And I have proven that stuff can transcend kinds via the biblical definition. You've given me no reason to say that there's a limit to change. So my premise is just more fulfilled than yours.
Oh, okay. Well, I think dogs and wolves, I think if you're saying that is an example of evolution, then you are on our side, because anybody would say a dog and a wolf and a coyote are the same kind of animal. How about put a dog, a wolf, a coyote, a banana, and a pine tree on the table, and ask a 3-year-old to tell you which ones don't belong to the group.
I'm sorry, did you say a dog, a coyote, a pine tree, and a banana?
Yes. Does a pine tree belong in with this group of dog and wolf and coyote?
You said a pine tree.
Yeah, pine tree.
You said a dog, a wolf, a pine tree, and a banana.
You're repeating me and yourself several times. Yes,
Well,
that's what I
because you
said.
asked me to pick one.
Okay. Which one would not belong? Dog, wolf, coyote, pine tree.
What's the category we're looking for?
Which ones would you consider the same kind?
It's kind of what?
Are they related?
Considering that bananas aren't alive, banana wouldn't be. Bananas can't be related to anything.
So you would, I said pine
You
tree.
mean the banana tree?
No, I said
That's
in
with
my
mine.
seminar I used banana, but I used
What's
Did you
up?
see that? That absolutely blew his the idea of the bananas.
pine tree for you tonight.
I
Do
go
you
with
think
pine
that-
tree.
Okay. Does this chart right here, maybe get another one here, the one that they show in the textbooks right here. Does this tree of life that the kids are forced to learn show that the humans are related to trees?
Yeah, they're both
Do you
alive.
believe- Okay, do you believe humans are related to bananas?
Bananas are the nuts of the banana tree.
So are we related to the banana tree then?
They're both alive, yes, because the banana tree would be in the tree category. So I'd already answered that question anyway. And you would have to give me a reason why they wouldn't be.
So banana trees, because they're alive, are related to humans because they're alive.
Correct.
Now, where is the scientific evidence of any banana tree ever coming from or turning into, either way, anything other than a banana tree?
You would have to go backwards for that. And banana trees don't turn into banana trees.
Well, my point is, we can't go backwards. You can imagine. Science is what we can observe, study, test, demonstrate. Demonstrate a banana or a wolf or a pine tree or start with anything you want if you want to skip the first 4. I said, I'll give you a protozoa. Show me how the protozoa here, right there. Show me the evidence of a protozoa producing a non-protozoa. The kids
Define
have to learn
protozoa,
the-
please.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Can you define what a protozoa is for me?
Well, this is an example of a single-celled creature. There are 20,000 different kinds of single-celled organisms. This textbook uses a protozoa. Some use bacteria. Some use amoeba. You pick one when you want. I'll give you any single-celled creature you want. Start with a bacteria, protozoa, amoeba. Pick one you want. I don't care.
Okay.
Turn it into something other than its kind.
A bunch of single-cell organisms form together to become multicellular. Now they're different.
And it's not just a colony or a collection of creatures working together. I cover that one in great detail.
No, cells, if they do that, they usually fuse together. So it wouldn't be a bunch of colonies of things. They're not limited to the same way you and I are.
Okay. So you think that a single-celled creature becoming multicellular,
It's different, yeah, by definition.
and that's enough evidence for you to make a chart like this, to saying that humans came from this too, right?
You didn't ask me to justify the entire chart with that. You asked me to prove a single-cell organism changing.
Okay, Donnie, you've done debates on this one yourself about the so-called protozoa changing the single-cell creature. I've got slides on it. I got 80,000 slides in here. This is stuff they want to skip. Okay, I forget the
So
name
what
of the
we
one.
have right now is I've proven that single-cell creatures can change, and that creatures can change further beyond that. And you've also given me no reason to show that there's a limit to the change that can happen.
Well,
You see the problem?
The limit would be scientific observation.
Why?
We've seen dogs be by artificial selection made smaller or bigger. Great Dane to Chihuahua. Okay, are you saying there's no limit? Do you think it's possible to get a dog as big as the universe?
In a bigger universe where it has the criteria needed to get that big, yes, there is no reason to say not without any proof.
There's no reason to say not without any proof. Do you understand what you've just demonstrated is that you believe this isn't scientifically observable. Science tells us there are limits. How high can a cow jump? They've got a 6-foot record now for a cow jumping over a 6-foot fence. Do you believe the cow could ever jump over the moon?
Under the right circumstances, yes.
Yes.
Why wouldn't it?
There could be certain variables There could be science behind it. If there's certain variables that are there, then yes, that can be a possibility because the science would also support that. All because you can't prove it definitively at that particular moment. That's not the point. Like, if the variables are there, yes, a cow could potentially evolve far enough to be able to jump as high to the fucking moon. Like, once again, it's science. So, like, I don't understand why he doesn't understand that.
That's my point. It's imagination. It's not.
It's not
science.
imagination. You haven't given me a reason to say it's not true. I've proven everything else. Also, it jumping over the moon doesn't change the creature, so it's irrelevant anyway.
Is there a limit to how fast dogs can run?
Maybe, maybe not. Why would
Do
there be?
you think a dog could ever run the speed of light?
Considering how the laws of physics works, probably not.
Okay.
If we're in a universe where light's faster, probably.
Okay. Do you think a dog could ever run 100 times the speed of light? Is there any limit to the speed of dogs?
The only thing that's limiting them is current laws of physics. Outside of that, there is no limit. Why would there be?
Science is what we can observe. All you're showing us, you have a vivid imagination.
Science is not stuff that you can observe. It's also stuff that you can test. And I can use evolution to test where and observe where fossils will be. I can use it to find ancestries and all that. So it is science, even by your definition.
Okay. I would predict without knowing at all, you play a lot of video games because you have a wild imagination. Science, what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Look it up in any dictionary.
Is this the second time you debated, or this is your first time? Because I did see the
This
first
is
time.
my fourth.
Oh, this is your fourth time. Okay, I'm just making sure we weren't watching like the first thing ever. Okay.
This is the standard definition among all scientists of
This
science.
is the first time he's
Science
got it right
means
here.
knowledge.
Gotcha.
Okay? Science means knowledge. A systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge, testable explanations, and predictions. I think we could test and say protozoa always produce protozoa, amoeba always produce amoeba. They don't ever turn into dogs and coyotes and wolves and humans and pine trees. But you believe they do. Okay, believe whatever you want.
I
But
just
stop-
gave you an example of how they can change. You haven't given me a reason why that would be wrong. So
So you believe amoeba or the bacteria the two that join together to make a colony that you say is now a new organism. When they reproduce, does it reproduce as an organism or does it reproduce as individual cells and make
it would
another
reproduce
colony?
as an organism. Why would it reproduce as anything else? They fuse together. So when they do what cells do to reproduce, which is split, that's what they're going to do, is just become the same thing.
I don't know why I can't find the name of the one they always use to say this is the one that became multicellular.
Is it the Cladomonas example, Ken, that you're looking to?
That's it. Cladomonas. Thank you, brother. What they do, they fuse together and they
You
make
want this
what
one
you
like
guys
fun?
consider a new organism. Now, can two Cladomonases get together and produce a baby Cladomonas, or do they have to go back and produce single cells at a time and make another colony?
Considering that single cells don't produce babies, no.
Single cells produce by fission or fusion. So this is not what anybody would consider a new life form, a new organism. We have animals, schools of fish go together to protect themselves. Flocks of birds do the same thing. Humans get together to protect themselves. In
Hey,
cities or
Don, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Kent. Apparently, I'm under tornado watch, so if I leave, just know it's because a tornado hit.
oh, Illinois. I lived up there. I know. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to let
Okay.
you know, so that way you don't think I'm trying to be rude. Anyway, you can continue.
No problem. If we see you disappear, you'll know the tornado came. Now, if you did disappear in a tornado and died, then what happens to you? You just go back to, be recycled into dirt, or
No, I'm going to look my Lord and Savior in the face, and I'm going to say, thanks for the life that you have allowed me to live.
thanks to who?
Jesus. We've been over this. We all know I'm Christian here.
Okay.
Oh man.
My God's a forgiving God, so even if I'm wrong on evolution, he'll forgive me.
Right. Well, Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning of the world. Was he lying?
I think he was being he was being hyperbolic. But even if I'm wrong, he'll forgive me, so whatever.
Okay.
So whatever.
All I do is say, these textbooks say, all the many forms of life on Earth today, whales, birds, are descended from a common ancestor. I'm pointing out this isn't science. They say it's found in a population of primitive unicellular organisms. Start with any unicellular organism you want. There are 20,000 of them, okay? And you can believe that they're related, but they don't. Here they drew the bobcat, the bird, the snake, and the turtle going back to a common ancestor. Where has anybody ever seen a turtle produce a non-turtle or come from a non-turtle? Apparently
Tortoise.
it came from huh?
Tortoise.
Okay, tortoise or turtle. I understand the difference. We got one here. Got several of them here. Okay. Do you believe tortoises are related to birds?
They probably have an ancestor that's related to them very far back on the evolutionary tree. Yeah.
That would be your religious belief. We don't
Why?
see that. Has anybody ever seen any animal turn its part of their babies turn to frogs or part of them turn to turtles?
That's
Part
not
of-
the point. There's certain evidence and certain factors that prove the connection and correlation to each other. That's what he's not understanding, bro. I don't get it.
From turn to birds.
Are turtles reptiles?
Turtles? Well, all these labels, things. The turtle doesn't care what we call it.
Could you please just answer the question?
Man has decided to put the label reptile on turtles, tortoises, frog, quite a few different.
I can tell you're getting mad.
Snakes. That's man's arbitrary decision. The turtle doesn't
What, you wouldn't be
care how
getting
to
mad at this
classify
point?
it. I know this: if you turned all the turtles and reptiles and snakes loose into a pile, the turtle would seek out another turtle to mate with, like himself. He wouldn't
Or
seek out a bird
tortoise.
or a snake. What?
Or a tortoise?
You think the turtle would want to mate with the tortoise?
Yeah. I look pretty similar.
I don't
Here
know.
we go.
We have a
Oh,
giant
shit.
tortoise here named Turbo, and
Ooh.
he's waiting for Mrs. Turbo, okay? He lives right next to the goats. He doesn't show any interest in them. Doesn't even
Probably
try to
because
mate
the
with
goats would stomp them in. But anyway, so since you haven't answered the question, I'm going to assume the answer is obviously yes, turtles are reptiles.
Turtles are reptiles.
Okay. So you do know, you have been,
This is by man's classification system. The turtles don't have a
is man's
classification.
classification wrong?
I don't know, but man has decided. We change the classification of animals all the time. But yes, currently,
Because we
turtle-
discovered sometimes we're wrong. But anyway, that's
Right.
irrelevant. So
turtles
you've,
today- Go ahead.
go on.
Man today is classifying turtles and tortoises in the reptile category. That whole category system was made up over the last couple thousand years, and the animals do not care. We put a bunch of ours together. The pigs only mate with other pigs. They don't even try to mate with the emus.
Okay.
No interest at all.
Oh,
So they know. They are smarter than the evolutionists. They know what their own kind is. You guys can't figure it out.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to what I was saying real fast. So turtles are reptiles. We know that birds, their feathers are modified scales. This has been explained to you, and you've seen the evidence for this. So under that logic, birds and turtles would be related off that.
Okay, there you go with your $1 trillion again. You said you know feathers are modified scales. You do not
That's
know
been
anything.
proven to you already. That's already been proven to you.
Well, Ken, let's just
Yeah,
allow
that-
Ken to finish his sentence. Go ahead, Ken.
That has never been proven. It's something you believe. Feathers are feathers. Birds, when they have babies, they grow feathers. None of them grow scales like turtles or tortoises or reptiles. You can believe they're both related, feathers and scales, because they're both made of keratin, but they come from different genes on the chromosome. They certainly have a different structure and function and weight. If you have a wild imagination, if you believe feathers and scales have a connection other than the same designer. You know, General Motors uses iron to make tanks and cars, and airplanes can be made out of iron. So it's a common building material. Keratin is a great building material to build lots of things. Fingernails made of keratin, hair, okay, scales, feathers. That doesn't prove they're related. Somebody taught you that. You need to get your money back for that education. But go ahead.
Have you ever looked at a bird's feet?
We have all kinds of birds around here. Yes, I've looked at their feet. They have
So
scales.
you know they're pretty scaly.
Right. The feet have scales.
Okay. So
I have fingernails made of keratin. The rest of my skin is not made of keratin.
okay.
Is yours? Okay. So birds have scales on their feet. They're designed because they work great design. And they have because they don't fly with their feet. They have feathers on their wings because they don't have scales on their wings. Feathers and scales are not related. You're supposed to be demonstrating that my 5 kinds of evolution are wrong, and I think you're batting 0 here. Let's go back to the chart. What, you want to skip the first 4? I said, I'll give you a living, or I'll let you start with life. I'll let you start with a protozoa or an amoeba, whatever one you would like. How on earth would you turn that amoeba, single-celled creature, into whales and humans? And the only evidence you have is one group of single-celled creatures that get together to make a cladomonas, and you think that's evidence for these charts that everything is related. Do you have any other examples besides cladomonas?
Do you want me to go step by step?
Go step by step. Tell me how.
Okay, single cell becomes cladomonas. The cladomonas cells start to specialize in certain features, such as the front parts specializing in sensing light for eyes, sides for ears. They get sensitive to sound. They start doing that to see and hear. Some of them start to harden in order to keep themselves safe. You get something more fish-like. That fish-like starts doing something similar to the mud skipper, where it starts to develop being stronger, specialized lungs. It gets on the land and then starts to develop specialized legs. There's no reason to say it can't. You haven't demonstrated why. And then from that point, it goes on to whatever it wants to be. Let it be turtle, bird, and all that.
This is a fiction story you just told. It is not observable science. You can make up any story you want, okay? The princess kissed the princess, princess kissed the frog, and it turned into a prince. To say, well, the cladomonas just had specialized cells that turned into light-sensitive cells that now changed into an eyeball, that's not science. That's a story. You're telling stories.
Yeah, the chat is so biased.
To say on the sides it developed, sensitive cells that could turn into an ear, and it developed cells that could turn into a lung and a heart. You're making up fairy tale stories. We don't observe this. It's not science. Even if it's true, it's not science yet. Never been demonstrated.
Wait, so it can be true, but not scientific?
Correct. There are things that are true.
Evolution can still be true despite not being scientific.
Well, the definition of science is things we can observe, study, and test. Would it be scientific to say 20 feet under the surface of the moon, it is a certain type of rock? I don't know. We'd have to go test that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You can get a hypothesis.
So it is scientific then?
Well, science, what do we know?
And what we can test and observe.
We can test, scientific. Crossbreed your birds, you will always get a bird. We breed chickens here, raise chickens. They always produce baby chickens. No exceptions.
What's a bird?
I love that.
You got to call Bill Clinton and find out what the definition of is first. A bird, man has decided to classify animals into a bird category, that if it has feathers, whether it can fly or not. Our emus can't fly. Okay, the ostrich can't fly. There's quite a few birds that cannot fly. Man has decided if it has feathers, if it breathes air, has a four-chambered heart, we call it a bird in the bird category. The bird doesn't care. Our emus don't even try to mate with the chickens. They don't think they're the same kind. We have decided there are 10,000 kinds of birds. Okay. Darwin decided there are 14 kinds of finches. Okay, he's probably right. Therefore, he said finches are related to bananas. No, Charlie. Finches are related to finches. Science is all we can observe. Science, and you've never observed anything other than your cladomonas turn into a cladomonas. A group of cells get together and make the cladomonas, and you think that's enough to demonstrate that a bird and a turtle are related. I don't know how to argue with this.
How about giving me a reason why there's a limitation to what changes?
I don't have to give a reason why there's a limitation. Is there a limitation how fast people can run? Yeah, they got the 100-yard dash down now to, 9 seconds? What we've observed is they can't go much faster than that. We've observed them slowly lower the speed that a man can now run the 100-yard dash, and let's say it's 9 seconds. I don't know what the record is. But that would not lead me to the conclusion that someday man's going to run the 100-yard dash at the speed of light. There seems to be a physical limit.
If we evolved enough, we could. If we evolved enough, we could, technically. So I'm just saying, if we evolved enough, then we technically could. Like, if there is certain variables, whatever, yada yada, or let's say we're making technological inventions and incorporating that and modifying our bodies, some shit or whatever. Yeah, for all we know, it could be a possibility. Once again, the science is there for that. But yeah, currently where we're at now, no. We're just nowhere near advanced. We don't have anything among like something like that, and et cetera, et cetera. And we do understand how the speed of light works. We do understand how to get to that point, et cetera. but our bodies aren't just capable of replicating those variables. If the variables were there, which could be aka caused by evolution, potentially, if we evolved enough to be able to do that, then yeah, that is a possibility. Another example, I don't know if you guys ever heard it, but like I think it's called like this Silent or whatever, something like that. It's kind of similar to Bird Box, where it's basically a movie where like these bat creatures like from dinosaur times are like got trapped in a cave, and because they're in a cave for so long and had to feed on each other, etc., they evolved in a sense to where like when they got released from the cave, they're extremely sensitive to sound and like obviously like to eat, like live things and whatnot. They can't see or anything. And they were like deformed and everything. Like literally the whole process of evolution happens, right? Because like the environment that they were forced to be put into, and they get released into the world, and that's how they basically the reason why they are, why they're designed the way, etc. The whole 9 yards. So like once again, like if the variables are there, then yes, somehow, some way, man could be able to run as fast as the speed of light. Yes, that is a possibility. To sit here and say that it's not a possibility, that's just being completely dishonest, because once again the science is there to prove that possibility.
Yeah, the laws of physics seem to limit, and the laws of genetics, don't forget the laws of genetics,
but what Ken said as well is correct too. We're currently with the laws of physics that we do have as well to know whatnot, but once again, if the variables are there and we evolve far enough, then yeah, we could potentially be able to.
Birds to always produce baby birds. No exception.
Like, there's technically things in space that even defy the laws of physics that we just don't understand, There's that too. So
notice how he has refused to give me any sort of limitations.
No.
Like, he keeps dancing around that.
Yeah, he just repeats himself. Let me see. Oh, yeah, you guys.
It's also like an hour 15, I think.
Yeah, you guys.
It doesn't go all the way. It's also like.
Yeah, you guys go for like a hot minute. Let me see something else real quick.
I got done a huge deal. I got the election.
He's on the floor, Tom.
Explain to me what he's
An
doing.
hour.
We're saying
It's up to an hour 17.
Yeah. I was trying to pull something through.
We actually only got like 20, 30 minutes in this.
That's not too bad.
Well, you've refused to define what a bird is for me, so there's no proof of that then.
Well, I've said man is putting these classifications on them. They don't care. Our emus do not show any interest in mating with the turtle or the goats or the cows or the pigs. None.
Emus might not be birds.
Okay, we got chickens right next to the emus.
Chickens might not be birds.
Chickens might not be birds?
You haven't given me a definition. So as far as I'm concerned at this moment, if you're not going to give a definition, I can just say anything is not a bird. Do you know what the burden of proof is?
Obviously, you can say and believe anything you want. You've demonstrated that all evening, okay? You can believe this if you want. Man is putting these definitions on these animals. They don't care. God said they would bring forth after their kind. The chickens, so far, every farmer will tell you, make baby chickens that look about the same. They've now developed them through selective breeding into 500 varieties of chickens. That doesn't mean they're ever going to develop them into a frog or an ant or a worm. But you guys have these charts. You have a ladybug connected to a zebra and a pine tree and a human. This isn't science. This is pure imagination. Ladybugs always produce baby ladybugs. There aren't any exceptions. We've never observed it. It's outside of science. If you want to believe this chart, that's fine. I don't care what you believe. But if you want to make me pay to have this put in the textbook for the kids to learn as science, I'm going to object to that till I die. And long after I die, my videos are going to haunt you guys for hundreds of years. Aren't they?
No. I don't care that much.
Okay. Well, what we've observed is animals produce after their kind, and God said 24 times in the first 7 chapters of the Bible, they'd always bring forth after their kind, whatever a kind is.
Yeah.
That's all we've observed.
I've already proven that the biblical kind can't be true, at least the way you're using it then. Or at least stuff can't change from their kind.
Well, I would avoid the word species because man is, again, this is a man-made classification system. Do you know, let's see, the fruit trees yielding fruit after his kind. Okay? First mention of kind in the Bible tells us the fruit trees will always bring forth the same kind. Apple trees always make baby apple trees. Do you know of any exceptions to that? Would this be considered a scientific statement for you?
What if an apple tree brings forth to a tree that can't produce apples? Is it still an apple tree?
That's a good question. Again, it's of how is man labeling these things. If a person cannot produce babies, are they still a person?
Yeah.
Okay.
But a human isn't defined by their ability to produce humans. An apple tree is defined by its ability to produce apples.
No.
That's why it's an apple tree. If it does not produce apples, it is not an apple tree, by definition.
Well, the genetics of, what about, is a human when they're not producing a human?
I don't define human by the ability to produce humans.
Okay.
I define apple tree by the ability to make apples.
Okay. Is there something in the apple tree's genetic that maybe it's even in the genes of the bark and the root and the stem? Maybe that just each cell of the tree might have its own special genetic code.
Can you
that
prove
demonstrates,
that?
Wow, I think they do prove that.
I want you to prove that. You've made a claim. It is your burden to prove your claim.
Every single cell in the apple tree has the same genetic that if you take a seed from that apple and plant it in the ground, it'll grow the bark, the leaves, the stem, the roots, all from that seed. Don't you ever wish you could just marvel at how amazing God is to do that? God said they'd bring forth after their kind. You know the fun fact you show on your charts the apple tree coming from a protozoa.
You know the fun fact is, and I should have called him out for this, that's not how you get an apple tree. You can't just take an apple seed out of an apple and plant it.
That's not the exact process either, yeah. I wasn't gonna, I could have nitpicked that, but I was just like leaving it, like whatever.
I should have nitpicked it. Like he really doesn't know what he's about.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the actual process, so.
Where is your evidence that an apple tree came from a protozoa? Why do you believe that?
I've already given you the reasons for that.
Yeah, give it to me one more time because it slipped my mind. I forgot it.
Yeah, a way to plant an apple tree, by the way, guys, you have to have your soil tested to determine the pH. pH of the soil should be between 6 and 7. Apple trees can grow in most soils as long as there is no standing water. Avoid planting in areas where water stands for several hours after rain. Okay, and those are just the first 4 steps, and it kind of goes on from there. But yeah, like you're just putting down a seed. That's not how that works. quick info.
I have proven to you that creatures create creatures that aren't themselves. You have yet to prove there's a limit to those
Ken,
changes.
if I could jump in, are you referring to the mud skippers and the queen ant?
Yeah, that's just part of my examples. Why?
Okay.
I also was talking because those are part of the fact that he refuses to tell me what a kind is. So I'm going off the biblical kind since that would make the most sense for him. And according to the Bible, there are 4 kinds, and those are what they are, and they're in between.
Okay, let's allow Ken to respond. Go ahead.
There's more than 4 kinds. It says fruit tree after his kind. So we have fruit trees. Let's see. Grass after his kind. Whose seed was in itself. Whales after their kind. Cattle.
Whales
after
would
their
just be
kind.
swimming kind. That would be crawling kind. Trees and grass, I don't know.
Well,
That could be crawling kind as
24
well.
24 times it says, let's see, cattle after their kind, fowls after their kind, creeping things after their kind, 2 of every sort. Cattle, let's see. There's vulture after his kind, the raven after his kind, the owl after his kind. Who told you there's only 4 kinds of animals in the world? Where'd you go to school?
I didn't say there was 4 kinds of animals in the world. I'm going off what the Bible says, classifies them, the kinds.
I'm showing you
Because
what the
you
Bible
refuse
says.
to give me a definition.
No, I'm showing you what the Bible says. There is a raven kind. There is a vulture kind.
That's later
see.
on in the book. I'm talking about the very beginning of the book.
It says there the heron after his kind. There are now 72 varieties of herons that
This
man
is
has
later
decided.
in the book. I'm talking the beginning of the book.
So are we only allowed to use the first word in the book? In?
No, you're not, but you're straw manning what I'm talking about then.
The Bible says there are many kinds of animals, more than 4. The word baraman, a Hebrew word, baraminology, is a website deals with that, say there are about 8,000 kinds of animals on land. Noah did not have to take insects on the ark or fish. They had plenty of water outside, okay? Insects can survive on floating carcasses and floating log mats. Where
They can't
other animals
survive in
could
a
not.
storm.
Somebody said you're winning the
We're not here
debate.
to debate whether the Bible's true. You're supposed to, I thought, for this debate.
Wait, explain what?
Explain.
I said
why
somebody in the
my
chat
6
said you're winning the
definitions
debate.
of evolution are wrong, and you're way off topic for that. Okay.
I've already gotten you
Are the
to
6
agree that the
definitions of
first three
evolution?
are wrong.
The first 3 are. Let me call them up for you again here. So, cosmic evolution. You don't think that's necessary?
Yes, you've
for the
granted
discussion of
me
evolution?
the idea that life is already there, so you've already proven that you don't need the first 3 by this
Well,
debate
okay,
already.
no. Again, calm down.
I forgot
For
what the
this debate, I said I'll give you the protozoa.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to call the first 3 science, now that's what they do in the textbook. I'm not giving everybody that right. I think if they want to prove, if they want me to pay for their theory, their religion to be taught, they need to prove the first 3. But for tonight, I want you to show how the protozoa turned to a frog and a whale and a human.
That's not
You
what I'm
haven't
here
done
to
that.
do. Like you said before, I'm here to disprove your 6 that are needed. By the very fact that you've granted me life already, you've already proven I don't need the 3. And my other argument for the other,
I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna clarify. When you guys were talking about macroevolution, Kent's point was, okay, in our discussion on macroevolution, I will, for sake of argument, grant you the first 4. But he's not saying that you have the first 4.
he can only grant me the first 4 if they're not necessary.
Kent, did you want to respond?
And I only said the first 3, by the way.
Donnie, we are completely wasting our time with this fella here tonight, okay? Now, I
Ooh,
will continue.
Kent,
Though.
that's a sharp stab.
You needed it, okay? And a sharp kick also. But listen,
Always works.
you want to start with living things.
Yes, and
That
you've
is not
granted me that.
and you don't have a complete theory. Let's start with
I
$1
do.
trillion. You don't have a complete theory. You don't have a
I
trillion
do.
dollars.
Why would I not have a complete theory?
Okay. Well, then I retract. I'm no longer going to give you a protozoa.
You can't do that.
I'm taking my protozoa back. I cancel it. Now, tell me how life got started. And
If
why
you're going to
this is-
do that, then I have this debate ended via the fact that you're now breaking the dialectic.
I didn't understand a single syllable of that.
If you're going to do that, then I'm going to ask for Donnie to call the debate here for you are now breaking the dialectic.
Call the debate a dialectic. I'm not getting it.
You
Donnie.
are breaking the dialectic if you do that. So I'm going to have Donnie call the debate.
Have Donnie call
Listen.
the debate. It's already been named a debate for a long time. Okay.
Not give it a physical name, have it done.
Okay. Well, if you'd like to quit, that's fine. I'm going to point out to the audience, you have not explained why cosmic evolution, time, space, matter, should not be part of the formula.
You
want
agreed
to
to
start
it.
with a living thing.
You agreed
wanna
to
start
it.
with- I agreed to give you that for the sake of argument, but that doesn't mean I agree with it. Where did time, space, matter come from? This is essential for your religion. You don't have a coherent religion, Ken. I wish you could see it.
Do you remember what my point on the first 3 were and why they were could be taken out?
I don't. I'm sorry. I completely forgot.
The reason why I said they could be taken out is because if we're arguing the idea of evolution, they're irrelevant because we would go off the basis that we have life.
Right. And I said, this is like saying, well, if we had $1 trillion, how would we spend it? You don't have $1 trillion, okay? But if you
It's
want to
what
tell me
if.
how you spend, okay, if you want to tell me how you'd spend your $1 trillion, okay, let's imagine you got $1 trillion. Let's imagine you got a protozoa. That you don't have an answer to these first 4, and you guys are desperate to get rid of these.
First 3. First
First
3.
3. Okay. Okay, tell me how life got started. Organic evolution is the origin of life. Do you think molecules can get together and come alive?
Yes. Why
Show
not?
me any. Show me any kind of alive.
Single-cell organisms.
Single-celled organisms form themselves? Is
Yeah,
that what
why
you're saying?
not? Yeah, why not?
Well, Ken Rock, I think
this-
Kent's asking you, how does the single-celled organism come from non-living chemicals?
Who said the
This all-
organisms were alive?
This only happens in video games, okay? When
It
things
doesn't
just
happen
come
in
alive.
video games. I don't know what video games you're playing.
Oh, I don't play any of them, believe me, okay? My brain's
don't
way
believe
above that, all right? Now, so if you want to start with living organisms, you want to say number 4, the origin of life can be explained scientifically?
The origin of life, how life started? Yeah, that's abiogenesis, isn't it?
That's what they call it. Show it to me. Has anybody ever seen this? It ought to be common. Anybody should be able to do it.
Why?
Scientists in the laboratory can't even make it happen.
Why does it need to be common if it happened one time?
How do you know what happened one time? The origin of life. Organic theory of evolution. Origin of life. How did life get started? A new theory of organic evolution. They're always looking for ways to try to come up with a theory. How did this happen? Well, the scientists will say, nobody knows how a lifeless chemical spontaneously formed a living cell. Nobody knows that.
If I told you they found cells on, like, I think it was Mars, would you concede that?
If they find cells on Mars, which they have not, but if they did, what would that demonstrate? Oh, in a court of law, Your Honor, that could prove somebody snuck them up there when we weren't looking. That could prove life was created by God up there. That doesn't prove it's evolved. If you find living cells anywhere, I think you'd say there must have been an intelligence behind it.
Okay, that just proves me how.
What now?
How does that disprove me?
I am completely lost here.
How does an intelligent designer disprove what I am saying?
Well, my intelligent designer that I worship says he made everything in 6 days, and they always bring forth after their kind. That's what we've seen. You want to skip? You want me to give you time, space, matter? You want me to give you all the elements, all 92 elements, not the synthetic ones, we've made those. Then you want me to give you planets already being here. And you want to start with all that. You want way more than 1 trillion to start with, I know, okay. Then you want me to let you have living things. And I think me using these six definitions of evolution is a very legitimate debate tactic. It's a reasonable question for anybody with one functioning brain cell to say, folks, if they want to teach this theory of evolution, if they want to put these family trees in our textbooks, they better have an answer for all 6 of these.
Okay,
and you don't have an answer for it.
Let me put down a quick hypothetical, if you don't mind. So you have 2 people, okay? Both these people believe in evolution. One person believes in the Big Bang Theory. The other person believes that an all-powerful God made it. They believe in evolution, but they disagree with your first 3 steps. So how does that work?
They're both wrong. The only person who's right on everything is me, okay?
You're not answering my question.
I'd say they're both wrong.
Goddamn.
There was no Big Bang.
One person doesn't believe in the Big Bang.
Well, it's like saying if elephants are orange, how did they get that way? They're not orange.
One person doesn't believe in the Big Bang, though. One person believes in evolution, but not the Big Bang.
Okay.
So this charge is irrelevant to them.
I would ask that person who says he doesn't believe in the Big Bang, where did time, space, matter come from? He may say God. Good, very good. Now, did God make all 92 elements? Or
yes.
Did the elements evolve?
God made them.
Okay. So God made all 92 elements.
God made the planets, and God made the first starting life.
Now, is that
your
what
first 4 are now taken out?
Is that what the textbooks teach the kids?
Irrelevant.
Very relevant.
Not relevant. How is that relevant? We're talking about if it's real or not. Just because the textbooks are wrong doesn't mean the theory is wrong.
Well, the students are taught there was no God. We can explain everything we see without.
The textbooks don't say that. The textbooks don't say that at all.
You cannot explain a pencil without a designer. You cannot explain a thumbtack without a designer. There was a designer for the pencil. There was a designer for the thumbtack. There's a designer for life. There's a designer for the Earth. The Earth has a lot of cool features, like just the right amount of gravity where we can live here. Would you rather be on a planet with 10 times the gravity or 1/4 of the gravity? Lots of things wouldn't work. You'd almost think the planet was designed for man to live here. It spins around once a day. Lots of that causes cool wind currents and causes the weather patterns. The planet, that we can get into geophysics if you'd like, the planet is designed. You want desperately to skip the first 4 or 3, okay? And all I'm saying, I'm sorry I gave you the protozoa. I really am. I take it back, okay? You can't have your protozoa. Start with, you can't have all the 92 chemicals either, 92 elements.
Okay, fine. I already believe in a God, and I already believe the first 3 are justified under him.
Well, let me jump in to clarify.
I just went past that.
I'm going to jump in to clarify. Common theistic evolution doctrine, Ken, teaches basically that God sparked the universe into existence, but all your stars and planets still evolve naturally over billions of years. And so, Ken, you can't really, as a response, just say, well, God created the stars and planets. That's not
Why?
typical
Why
theistic
can't I say
evolution.
that?
Well, because, again,
I don't care
typical-
what other theistics think. We're talking about what I think and the evidence that I have. So what other people think is irrelevant.
So is it your position that stars and planets did not slowly evolve over billions of years? Are
They
did?
could have, but that could have been under the influence of a more powerful, intelligent designer.
Kent, if you'd
Have-
like to respond.
You see how the
Okay.
moderators try.
Is this part of science?
Yeah.
Has anybody ever seen a planet or star form from dust getting together?
This guy
like they claim?
supposedly.
They're making the claim that a big bang, which would put everything going out in radial directions, the particles after they fly out get together. Does a hand grenade ever explode and the particles out there hit each other someplace? No. The fragments of the hand grenade get further apart every second you wait. The fragments of the Big Bang would get further apart every second you wait. They're never going to get back together and form a solid planet or star. All we've ever seen, stars blow up, they burn out, nova, supernova. We've never seen one form. And there's a whole lot of stars out there. Come to Lenox, Alabama. You can come see them up on our hillside. It's amazing how many stars. And we've never seen one form. I would say my Bible says God made them. I'll start with that. I have to take that. I take that by faith. I believe that's a reasonable scientific answer. I'm not claiming it should be taught to everybody in the schools at taxpayer expense. I don't think we should even have public schools. We should have every religion have their own. If you want to teach them you came from a rock, teach them. But I don't want to pay for it. That's all. I'm going to go until I die, and way beyond that. I'm going to maintain there are 6 stages to the evolution theory. Only one that is part of science is number 6. None of the first 5 have ever been observed. They're purely religion. I've been using this chart for many years. Show me where my chart is wrong.
I would have moved to conclusions and questions. I think I've already demonstrated it more than enough times. My premise has been fulfilled. You have yet to give any reason for your premise, so I want to be done.
Actually, Ken, before we do go into closing statements, I'd be curious. Number 3 on the list, stellar evolution. Kent no one has ever seen a star form. Would you agree with that, out of curiosity?
Have I agree that no one's ever seen a star form? As of this moment, I would say yes, I agree with that. But I would have to do my research.
Okay.
I think I remember seeing a paper where they made an artificial star, but I don't know how much that would count for you, or even if it really happened.
All right. Kent, yeah,
All right.
if you'd like to respond, go ahead.
You can certainly type in on Google stellar evolution, and you'll find out the silent embarrassment of modern astrophysics is we don't know how a single one of these stars managed to form.
That's not true.
That was in Science Magazine back 40 years ago.
What's
They
not
didn't
true?
know. Why
We
do
know how
stars
stars
evolve?
form. It's
Stellar
explained.
evolution, the
Yeah.
birth of a star, the birth and death of a star. They have their charts and they imagine how it might have happened. My point is, we've never seen it. The origin of stars is an unsolved problem for contemporary astrophysics. There is no.
So, this, how do stars form? Yeah, like I already typed this and everything. I already talked about this in the beginning of the debate, where it's already explained how stars even formed, and then there's even like star formation, like step-by-step YouTube videos that you could even watch, and that's basically what you're working with. Yeah, no, like it's on Google. Like stars can form. Then what I can also type is, have humans seen stars form? There appears to be a very young star that has formed out of the remnants of supernova 1987A, making it the youngest star we've yet seen. We can see a protoplanetary disk. But yeah, so there's like I said, guys, you can look it up and see and whatnot. But let me see. Yeah, but there's stuff on there. If you guys want to look it up on your own and whatnot, I was just curious.
No answer.
But yeah, there is
We don't
answers
see it
for that.
happen. They say, well, it might cool down, a cloud of dust might get together. Yeah, you might start with $1 trillion, Do stars evolve? Stars are formed in giant clouds of dust and gas. This is imagination. It isn't seen. They can state it all they want and claim it happened. I can claim if you kiss a frog, it'll turn to a prince. But it doesn't happen. No one understands how star formation...
Well, the reason why they have those statements, guys, is there's clearly evidence that formulates that conclusion. They're not just going to say shit for shits and giggles. So that's what he's not understanding for the millionth time. But anyways.
Proceeds. Nobody. This has been a
and
persistent
once again, all we can do is go off the possibility of that particular evidence and then come to that proper conclusion. Because obviously it's a lot better than doing that than compared to just not believing it at all or just saying, oh, stars form because frogs sing. You know what I mean? Like, that's clearly crazy. So, like, that's once again, I just feel like he's not fully understanding in that sense, where that's why he's just kind of lost or whatever. But I don't know. It is what it is.
For a long time, we see the stars blow up. That's it. How many stars are there? Whole bunch. 76 trillion.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stars. Yeah.
Nobody's ever seen one form. God claims that He made them. To me, that's reasonable.
Well, we don't know
No,
that.
I'm not asking that.
That's
to be
in the
called
Bible.
science.
That's subjective.
That's the most logical conclusion.
Statements, etc. That has no form of transparency or any proof.
I'd say, well, I believe somebody made that. I think that's
I can make a whole fucking book and talk about like the god of Naruto and that he created everything in our world. And does that make it true?
Logical conclusion. This had a designer. I think it's an illogical conclusion to say it did not. It's illogical to say those stars did not have a designer and creator. Now, you wish to believe that, believe whatever you want. And if you're praying for a tornado so you can get out of this debate, that's fine.
I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't hit. It would suck if I got swept up in the middle of this.
Let's go to your closing arguments then. I think I've demonstrated my point. These first 5 should be part of the problem. You guys have not explained them. You want to skip them real badly. Go ahead. Tell me why you shouldn't. Why I should not include these.
Okay. So, are we moving to our conclusions, Donnie, or are we not?
Ken, right before we do, I would be curious to see a response to what Kent said. Do you believe that stellar evolution, in light of Kent's points and arguments there, should be taught in secular or public school textbooks as science? Just out of curiosity, yeah.
The formation, if they are able to prove what they are saying, absolutely.
But I think Kent just demonstrated that they can't.
No, he just claimed that they can't.
Can you counter his claim?
I don't have to if he doesn't have proof for the claim.
He just demonstrated it with...
He argument. Just claimed it. An argument isn't proof. I really do want to just move on to closing, Donnie.
Okay. All right, Ken, we'll give you 3 minutes to close, and then Ken, take whatever you need to close. We had some good discussion here, lots of points. Then we'll give Kent equal time. Let's just try and keep it within 5 minutes. Ken Rock, whenever you're ready.
Okay. I want to keep this nice and simple. So my premise was the first 3 points within the evolutionary theory that Kent has can all be dismissed on the fact that not everyone who believes in evolution necessarily believes in it. So we would go off the fact that life already starts if we're talking about the idea of evolution. The fourth one he has is the origins of life. This is explained with abiogenesis. So I think that's fine. And even then, again, like I said, if we're going off the idea of biological evolution, we'd already argue that life starts again. People would just argue life starts different ways, so it's irrelevant. Micro and macro are all different forms of evolution. If you say micro happens without giving a limit to why it can't become macro, then you're just making a basis claim. So I can now dismiss the idea that macro can't happen off micro based off that alone. I fulfilled my premise based off what I have said. Kent has failed to do his, therefore I've won this debate and Kent has lost. Kent, go for it.
Okay, Ken Rock, thank you very much for your closing statement. Kent, Dr. Kent, the science gent, you get 5 minutes. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
So he just declares that my chart's wrong, and he declares himself the winner. Wow. Go buy yourself a trophy, too, while you're at it. Okay. All right. Now, let me explain. The first...
Who laughed? What?
Of the word evolution are certainly used in the textbook.
Somebody laughed in the background. What was that about?
I'm positive. He has a whole group of people behind him feeding him arguments.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
He has a whole team.
Google it. Just type in chemical evolution.
Bruh.
Is that a thing? Yeah. What is chemical evolution? I'm just pointing out things that you guys ought to know. Chemical evolution. A third theory of life's origin is chemical evolution. Chemical evolution. Chemical evolution. There is such a thing as chemical evolution. I'm not making this up. The chemicals, all the different 92 elements, would have to start from hydrogen gas. We cannot fuse past iron. Can't be done. So how do you get 92 elements when the fusion can only take you up to iron? Even then, you're going to be stopped. Which stars can fuse past iron? Really, nobody can. Why can't stars fuse past iron? Go to physics. Why can't stars fuse past iron? It's a real problem. If you guys want to skip over, there are 92 elements. I would like to know how they got here. I think that's fair, since the human body contains a lot of these elements. And all the life forms, many of the life forms contain some of this. It is also true that stellar evolution is a legitimate thing to question. Stellar evolution. This is taught. You can Google it. It's all over Wikipedia. It's in physics books. Stellar evolution. Stellar evolution. I'm not making this up. This is a real problem for you guys. And same thing with organic evolution. How did life get started? Nobody knows. And you can believe all you want. Let's see. Let me use my closing arguments here. 1586. There we go. Okay. I do not understand how anybody cannot marvel at the design that we see all around us. Everything, a scale, a cell. Every cell of your body contains 100 trillion atoms. You probably have 100 trillion cells in your body. They all function together. As they wear out, your body makes a new one automatically. How did it learn to do that? When you cut yourself, it heals up automatically. Wow. The healing process, the hearing process, the vision process, smell, taste, touch.
So I just looked it up, but I typed "how did life start," and it says mineral like lead and water emerging from a hydrothermal vent on the underwater volcano in the basin, Southwest Pacific Ocean. Microorganisms that live near such plumes have led some scientists to suggest them as the places of Earth's first life forms. And then, like, I clicked the thing where it says how life was created on Earth. It says, like, when cyanobacteria evolved at least 2.4 billion years ago, they set the stage of remarkable transformation. They became Earth's first photosynthesizers, making food using water and the sun's energy and releasing the oxygen as a result. And things kind of just go from there. Yeah, so like I said, you guys can look it up and you can read all of it all you want, but this all has tons and tons of evidence to correlate to everything and why they come to that conclusion, et cetera, et cetera. But once again, it's all out there. I mean, so like I don't understand his confusion and why he just continues to repeat himself and say the same shit. So, well, that's just me.
They're stunning in
That's actually that process you were just talking about was actually abiogenesis process that I brought up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't understand why somebody would not admit there's a designer. Instead, they want to believe bacteria and whales and humans and pine trees all have a common ancestor, last universal common ancestor. That my point is, it's not science. Beam me up, Scotty. There's no intelligent life down here. You really think nobody made that? Nobody made that. These things happen by chance. This came from a random collection of molecules flying out at greater than light speed from a big bang. And you really believe nobody designed any of this? I'm baffled. I'm worried for a person's soul who doesn't understand that. I don't have a problem saying, wow, God, you are amazing. Thank you, God. You're awfully smart. I praise God. I don't have a problem with that. He created it all. He owns it all. He can make the rules. So I believe God wrote a book and told us what he did and why he did it. Didn't give us all the details. He didn't explain atoms in that book. Probably maybe atoms each are their own universe. We don't know. Okay, nobody knows for sure what goes below the electron. Is the electron? What is that? Is it a particle? What is it? Anyway, that's another story. God didn't explain it all. I think we'll understand someday, Judgment Day.
I think that's practically.
I think God created everything.
Someone else was defending you. They're like, I missed the beginning, but didn't hear a deflection. I did hear Ken answer a question, and Ken brushed him off and made another baseless assertion.
and I want to bring people into the kingdom.
Not everybody was being biased against him.
Heart to him. Give me a call, 855 Big
The majority percentage, though, was.
Come down and visit us at Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. Ken, you're welcome anytime. Come on down.
That's the end of the debate.
Well,
Everything else was just Q&A.
from everything that I heard, et cetera, between you and him, like if I had to choose the verdict, I would definitely probably be leaning more towards you. Just kind of like the explanations you gave, the examples, and mainly all it pertaining to science itself, and mainly all the stuff he just kept saying was just circular reasoning, repeating himself, and basically just saying that I just don't believe in that. There's just no way. I mean, and once again, that's just baseless. That's not proving anything. That's not asserting your claims or anything like that. Eventually got to like certain points where like he was using certain lines of evidence and whatnot, like that he was kind of bringing up. And I don't remember really all of that in detail, but regardless, like it was just overall, it was just really weird, really confusing in a sense. It wasn't really that straightforward or simple and concise, at least from what I was gathering from all of that. If anything, the most simple and most understanding thing was when you were kind of advocating for things, So, but overall, it is what it is. And I mean, like at the end of the day, what you guys got to understand. Once again, you can believe God made everything all day, every day. Like that's just subjective, baseless beliefs. Like that's just not going to really get you anywhere. While when it comes to science and the theories that we have with science, that we basically utilize evidence and correlation to that to come to those theories and conclusions. Okay, or utilizing the scientific method, etc., or utilizing basically tons of empirical evidence or objective evidence to basically come to the conclusion of why we believe how everything came to be, and etc., that is going to triumph over faith, religion, or subjective viewing, no matter what. Like that's just simple as it is. That's something we can at least go off with that has some form of line of evidence correlating to either the possibilities of things or something definitively or concretely being proven, etc., etc. One thing he also brought up was like the only things that is actual science is like things that we cannot test or observe, whatever, blah blah. So as an example, you go to make a fire and you touch the fire, it burns your hand. There you go, aka that's science, right? And that's what you believe, and that's fine. I agree with that. But then he said that things that we can observe or fully not know for a fact can't be science, and that's just belief in religion, blah blah. And that's not necessarily true, because once again, if you have evidence to prove the possibility of what the conclusion is, and you have A, B, C, D, and it all just kind of goes to a whole, connecting the dots into one simple notion, then yes, that could be a certain form of line of evidence and proving in the possibility of something to basically determining what that theory or conclusion could be. And that's not the same as a religion or faith or believing God exists or whatever, etc., etc. So I think that's where the disconnect was, and he just wasn't fully understanding that. And the fact that there can be any amount of evidence to begin with to correlate to these theories or conclusions, etc., like he just doesn't want to accept that or thinks it's absolutely outlandish or the same as religion. And once again, those are just two separate things. All the stuff that I even told you guys in the beginning of the debate and middle, that kind of just immediately just kind of threw everything out the window for him. And the most easiest and simplest way to kind of respond or deal with a person that, argues for faith or argues for God and creating everything. I won't deny the fact that you can't potentially be able to argue in God's favor or maybe win a debate if you're good enough. For all I know, there probably are people out there that can argue for God and make it really sound believable, etc., the whole 9 yards. But, from what I learned in school, high school, college, and most importantly, the internet, etc., when it comes to actual evidence of what we do actually have, that's science. And when it comes to God, that's not actual evidence. That's just us basically believing in that the Bible was somehow created by God, and anything in the Bible is the truth and the only truth. And once again, that's just completely ignorant. That's being naive. We don't know. For all we know, that could be a bunch of bullcrap. For all we know, that could be, deception or some manipulative type of purpose or scheme. The world may never fucking know. It is what it is, but that'll basically be my general concise thoughts of this whole thing. If you guys enjoyed, you let me know what your thoughts are. Do you believe in evolution? Do you believe in science? Do you believe in God? What do you think? Yada yada yada. Subscribe for more content. Subscribe you guys on the channel. And as always, that'll be basically it for this video. But yeah, that'll be it. Peace.
Observational science, as we call it. That's using the scientific method, observation, measurement, experiment, testing, all scientists, whether creationists or evolutionists, actually have the same observational or experimental science.
Mr. Ham and his followers have this remarkable view of a worldwide flood that somehow influenced everything that we observe in nature. A 500-foot wooden boat, 8 zookeepers for 14,000 individual animals, every land plant in the world underwater for a full year. I ask us all, is that really reasonable? You'll hear a lot about the Grand Canyon, I imagine, also, which is a remarkable place, and it has fossils. And the fossils in the Grand Canyon are found in layers. There is not a single place in the Grand Canyon where the fossils of one type of animal cross over into the fossils of another. In other words, when there was a big flood on the earth, you would expect drowning animals to swim up to a higher level. Not any one of them did.
If Bill Nye and I went to the Grand Canyon, we could agree that that's a Coconino sandstone in the Hermit Shale, and there's the boundary. They're sitting one on top of the other. We could agree on that, but we would disagree on how long it took to get there. But see, none of us saw the sandstone or the shale being laid down. There's a supposed 10 million year gap there, but I don't see a gap. But that might be different to what Bill Nye would see. But see, there's a difference between what you actually observe directly and then your interpretation in regard to the past. We're talking about the past when we weren't there. We didn't see those tree rings actually forming. We didn't see those layers being laid down. It's like the dating methods. You're assuming things in regard to the past that aren't necessarily true.
The fundamental thing we disagree on, Mr. Ham, is this nature of what you can prove to yourself. When people make assumptions, they're making assumptions based on previous experience. They're not coming out of whole cloth. I encourage you to explain to us why we should accept your word for it, that natural law changed just 4,000 years ago, completely, and there's no record of it.
Natural law hasn't changed. As I talked about, I said we have the laws of logic, the uniformity of nature, and that only makes sense within a biblical worldview anyway, of a creator God who set up those laws, and that's why we can do good experimental science, because we assume those laws are true, and they'll be true tomorrow. We build models based upon the Bible, and those models are always subject to change. The fact of Noah's flood is not subject to change. The model of how the flood occurred is subject to change, because we observe in the current world, and we're able to come up with maybe different ways this could have happened or that could have happened, and that's part of that scientific discovery. You cannot ever prove using the scientific method in the present, you can't prove the age of the earth. So you can never prove it's old. So there is no hypothetical.
What we want in science as practiced out on the outside, is an ability to predict. We want to have a natural law that is so obvious and clear, so well understood, that we can make predictions about what will happen. And the big thing I want from you, Mr. Ham, is can you come up with something that you can predict? Do you have a creation model that predicts something that will happen in nature?
Interesting. I just want to see that real quick.
The one I'll talk about.
In addition, once you've told me where God comes from, please try to clarify how you can figure that a spiritual force can have an impact on a material universe to create it. I think that some years ago we already talked about that kind of thing in philosophical circles at any rate, by posing the question, if angels are made of spiritual matter and a pin is made of material matter and spiritual matter displaces no space, how many angels can dance on the tip of a pen? I have a sense of sort of reversal experience here, but please do, go ahead.
You got 5 minutes. Now, I just want to know which question.
That's all right. We may take the rest of the minute.
We're supposed to do one question at a time. Which one would you like? That was.
This is the guy that you debated, right? But younger?
Yeah, he's been doing this for like 40 years.
Wow.
So which
I guess technically 25 years since he was in prison for like 15 years.
Spiritual matter, impact on material matter.
Okay, so 2 questions. All right.
Go ahead.
All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God. Because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or matter. If he's affected by time, space, or matter, he's not God. Time, space, and matter is what we call a continuum. All of them have to come into existence at the same instant. Because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it? If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it? You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously. The Bible answers that in 10 words. In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth, there's matter. So you have time, space, matter created, a trinity of trinities there. Just, time is past, present, future. Space has length, width, height. Matter has solid, liquid, gas. You have a trinity of trinities created instantaneously, and the God who created them has to be outside of them. If he's limited by time, he's not God. The guy who created this computer is not in the computer. He's not running around in there changing the numbers on the screen, okay? The God who created this universe is outside of the universe. He's above it, beyond it, in it, through it. He's unaffected by it. So, the concept that a spiritual force cannot have any effect on a material body, well, then I guess you'd have to explain to me things like emotions and love and hatred and envy and jealousy and rationality. I mean, if your brain is just a random collection of chemicals that form by chance over billions of years, how on earth can you trust your own reasoning processes and the thoughts that you think? Okay, so your question, where did God come from, is assuming a limited God, and that's your problem. The God that I worship is not limited by time, space, or matter. If I could fit the infinite God...
Okay, so it's just him saying his whole thing with God. I thought the other guy was going to respond. I'm assuming that's in the long version.
Probably. But you notice how he said the exact same thing he was doing in mine.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, man has to read off of.
Shoot the man.
Yeah, but he got in a lot of trouble.
I'm not gonna watch this whole thing, by the way. I'm just gonna see if I can find a point where they say something, just to see what they say. I'm just curious.
Your dry skin. We go through a lot every day.
T-minus 10.
To the variations, to be best. I wanted death in Adam all.
This is one of his old channels.
And not want a crime to be. I trust that book. I go to the bookstore and get. We're talking create not one. And any one of them challenged it on the basis that he had the right to teach because of freedom of speech. And he could do what he wanted to in his class. Well, he lost that case. And he lost it very simply because he was trying to teach creation in a public school that doesn't allow religion to be taught in a public school. He lost. He should have known better to bring the case. And then another guy challenged it. He challenged it on the idea that, well, I'll make my own curriculum. I'll show those guys. Well, of course, what happened is the school board said, hey, fella, you don't make the curriculum in this place. We make it. And he lost the case, too. Now, I hope that makes you understand why the creationists want to get to the 7th grade. They want to get to the 7th grade because that's the only place you can talk to school boards who don't know anything about evolution. Let me explain this to you. When I'm going to use a textbook, what do I use? I use one like this one. This textbook is a pretty basic text. It could be used in the University of Florida, University of Michigan, and any large school in the United States. It's small schools. As a matter of fact, I looked at the textbooks that are used here at Embry-Riddle University. They're great. One of the ecology books here has one of the best chapters on evolution I've ever seen. It's a great book. Anyway, this is what I had to use. And if you think about it a second, all the facts in here have to be able to stand scientific scrutiny. Somebody is looking at these babies, Well, here's what you find out. There is not a school in the United States that does scientific research that accepts creationism. Not one major college or university in the United States.
Hey, it's all baseless, subjective
creationism or intelligent design.
views. There's nothing to prove.
See it a different way.
Well, science has evidence.
I really looked, and I couldn't find a major college or university in the world
that point, that's not a fucking school. That's a fucking cult. That's a church, and etc. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is at that point. You know?
Creation or intelligent design. Now, I thought, teacher, I gotta find out about this stuff. So where do these guys get their ideas? So I ordered some Bob Jones textbooks. This is a Bob Jones life science book. They use it in the 8th grade. It has 500 pages in it. It has 250 references to biblical verses to explain science. It has not one reference to a scientific journal or book. It uses the term God 380 times, Satan 3 times, and hell twice. Here's the biology book that Bob Jones puts out for high school students. It has 692 pages, 350 references to biblical verses to prove science. Not one reference to any scientific journal or scientific book. It mentions God 600 times and Satan 40 times. This book is printed right here in Florida. You know it's a creation book because it says so. Biology, God's living creation. It's a creation book. This company claims that they are the largest textbook publishers for creation of schools in the United States. I have a sense of sort of reversal experience here, but please do, go ahead.
You got 5 minutes. Now, I just want to know which question.
That's all right. You may take the rest of the minute.
We're supposed to do one question at a time. Which one would you like?
Okay, here's his response. Okay.
Majority opinion proves nothing. Majority's often been wrong. So all of the experts on birds are saying the dinosaurs could not possibly have turned to birds. There are just millions and millions.
You can figure matter the story of the rest of the beginning of the universe. God, spiritual matter, impact on material matter.
Okay, so 2 questions. All right.
Go ahead.
All right, your question, where did God come from, assumes that you're thinking of the wrong, obviously it displays that you're thinking of the wrong God, because the God of the Bible is not affected by time, space, or... Your question, actually everything about that I heard a few minutes ago, saying that percent say yes, there was a God involved, and 50% of the entire population says God did it in the last 10,000 years. So if you're using majority opinion as your argument, I think that's obviously, historically, you can prove that's pretty easy to prove wrong. Majority opinion proves nothing. Majority's often been wrong. So all of the experts on birds are saying the dinosaurs could not possibly have turned to birds. There are just millions and millions of differences. So I guess I'd be curious, with all the evidence that we've gathered over the years, why you would think a dinosaur turned into a bird. When dinosaurs, reptiles produce reptiles, birds produce birds. I mean, there's no evidence of this. So my question, why do you think dinosaurs turned to birds if you think that?
Evolution is a process where all kinds of DNA and all kinds of animals are making changes. Some of that changes in DNA are going to turn out to be pretty good. Some of them aren't. If we take a look at an example from your research saying that, how about Noah's Ark had one kind of animal that evolved into dogs, foxes, and wolves. In 6,000 years, not possible at all. Couldn't even begin to happen in 6,000 years. Noah's Ark, one kind of horse developing into a zebra and a donkey, not possible. No, there's no way DNA can change that fast. What evolutionists are saying is the process of DNA changing takes a long time. You see, the creationists want it both ways. They want to make fun of evolution and saying, well, why does that thing want to do that? Well, it doesn't want to do it. DNA is changing randomly. But at the same time, they want to say that you can have all kinds of animals evolved in 6,000 years just hopped off of a ship someplace that Noah's running. It's impossible. There's absolutely no way that amount of DNA could change in 6,000 years. The only way you can solve that is by saying the usual way. It must have been a miracle. Well, in science, we don't talk about miracles. We talk about evidence.
Yeah.
And that's what's important to us. And I kind of resent Dr. Holbein telling us this is what we believe and this is what I predict. My prediction is that evolution has been going on for a long time, and it'll continue to go on, and it'll go on in the same way it's always developed. DNA will change bit by bit, little by little, and plants and animals will change. I have a couple of creationist magazines at home that told me in the Creationist magazine that the reason that we have thorns on blackberries and roses and the reason we have a toothache is because Adam and Eve fell from grace when they sinned.
Oh my God.
I have a hard time accepting that as scientific evidence. I would rather use as my scientific evidence tracing the origin of thorns and the origins of teeth back to their beginning, rather than relying on the fact that Adam and Eve sinned and that brought a disaster into the world. I'm done.
Professors, would you like to formulate a question or another statement? You do have 2 minutes.
Do we have more time? Do we have more time?
You will after 5 minutes.
How many?
After Mr. Hogan goes.
I didn't hear.
We can understand.
I'm sorry, you'll have 5 more minutes after Mr. Hogan has his 5 minutes.
So what were the 2 minutes that you said that we had time right now?
They're on the board. 1 minute and 47 seconds.
And we just talked about it.
And who has that time right now?
You do. Any three
one
of you.
us?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Just trying to get the
I'm sorry.
Image straight.
Thank you.
I do wonder about my earlier question. I don't feel comfortable about it being answered. That is, you keep insisting that the God of the Bible in some way is responsible for all this. You may, even if you were to prove that there's some kind of spiritual force, it is not necessarily the God of the Bible. So you're taking a giant leap there. So I think there's a lot of that has to do with lots of faith that has to be developed in there. And I see that from our group here. And I think Mark Twain said about faith that faith is believing something you know ain't true. I don't think you can rely on.
Or it's something that could be potentially true, to be fair, but you know.
Yeah.
So.
I think you need to, if you want to be honest, intellectually honest, you've got to come up with something a little bit more solid than just to buy in to the fact that 80% of U.S. Americans are God believers and only 14% are not. So I don't know. Is that? Can he answer that? Or
absolutely.
All right, that'd be nice.
What was the question? Phrase the question again, please. You didn't really get. You made a statement. I didn't hear a question. What do you want to hear?
Okay, my original question was for you to show where the deity comes from. And you keep insisting that it is the God of the Bible. But that is another leap of faith that seems to be part of that. Can you sort of trot that out a little bit more? And let me say one thing also about the story that you gave about the National Geographic or the Scientific American with the the bird and dinosaur thing. It shows that the scientific community is working. These people are in dialogue. Error may occur where reason is left free to correct it. And in your system, it's nailed down by the Bible, and no, I cannot challenge that. With the invention of all kinds of strange beings, I just looked, this is very much news to me. I looked at one of the books that Jim has here, where the assertion is that evolution is inspired by Satan. And what now we have?
Thank you, sir. We're going to have to cut you off, and you'll be back in 5 minutes.
Carry on.
I guess I'm still a little baffled what the question was. If you're going back to, you didn't like my answer of how God did it, God is outside of time, space, matter. I think you need to stop and look at the theory that you are believing in, apparently, because there are so many thousands of unanswered questions. See, it's much easier for me to believe in the beginning God than to believe in the beginning dirt or matter. The evolutionist does not answer the question. There's 6 different types of evolution, as I shared clearly earlier. If the Big Bang Theory is true, then I would like to know what exploded and where did it come from and where did the energy come from and where did the space come from for the matter to expand into, and where did the organization come from and where did the information come from. There's a whole host of questions that are a whole lot harder for you to answer than in the beginning God, where's information come from? This universe is not just random molecules circulating around. I mean, it carries information. Just like a book is so much more than ink on a paper, it carries information. And the DNA is more than just chemicals. It's information. So the evolutionist never answers the question, where did this information come from? Where did the energy come from? Where did the matter itself come from? And you gripe about my belief. I believe by faith in the beginning God. I know, I admit I don't understand that. But you believe hundreds of things by faith. You don't even understand that you're believing by faith. You think matter is either eternal or can create itself. What's the two choices? How did matter get here? The world is here. Where did the matter come from? Did it just happen by itself, or is it all just imaginary? We're not really here at all. You're faced with the option of, we're not really here, this is all just our imagination, or it had a beginning, or matter is eternal, which is both of the second two options are in violation of the obvious laws of thermodynamics. Matter doesn't create itself. And everything degrades over time.
Also the second.
So either it had a beginning or it didn't. If it had a beginning, then what was before the beginning? I mean, there's so many thousands of things you take by faith. I say in the beginning God, and you say, well, this matter somehow either was always here or created itself, and then this matter somehow became alive, and then this first living thing learned how to reproduce, and then it learned how to make something other than its kind. I mean, even though nobody's ever seen that, nobody's ever seen a dog produce a non-dog. Or you mentioned about, the fact that a wolf and a fox and a dog coming from a common ancestor of Noah's Ark in only 4,400 years. For heaven's sake, you believe they came from a rock. I mean, come on. I don't think my theory is that silly at all. So, if my answer to your question is still the same, I believe in the beginning God. I do take that by faith. Here's the major difference that I don't think you're going to understand. I admit mine is a religion. They do not admit theirs is a religion. They want you to think what they believe is science, and all of you should pay for their religion to be taught in this university. And that's the situation we have today, and that's unfortunate. There have always been situations where the majority taught something. I mean, in the Soviet Union 15 years ago, if you stood up and said, hey kids, I don't believe in communism, I think capitalism is a better system, you would be in Siberia if you survived. And here in Emory University, if you stood up in your classroom and said, I don't believe this evolution theory is true, I think it's pretty obvious there must have been a designer to this system, you would be in intellectual Siberia. You would lose your job. It has happened to hundreds of teachers, just simply for standing up and say, look, I think the evidence is here, folks. There must have been a designer. If I asked you to explain how computers came to be, but you cannot use man as your answer, I only want a purely naturalistic explanation.
Right. I'm going to end this here, though, Ken, and I'm going to hop out for a bit. What's it called? And I'll be up and at 'em eventually later today. What's it called? If you're ever free or whatever, we could always check this out even further. And we're not gonna have to see the whole thing, but we can just kind of skip through the most important pieces or whatever. But
I'm done.